Good evening and welcome to the December 12th, 2018 Planning Board meeting for the town of Dudley. Present this evening, we have Russell Giglio, member, Gregory Benoit, member, Daniel Edmiston, clerk of the board, Pamela Humphrey, vice chairman of the board, myself, Guy Horn, chairman. We have Don Johnson, our town planner, and Carol Savard as the clerk. And the first item on our agenda for this evening is item A, approval of meeting minutes from November 28th, 2018 meeting. Would somebody like to make a motion for those minutes?
Move that we accept the meetings from Wednesday, November 28th.
We have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from November 28th. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Next on our agenda, item B, approval of meeting schedule for calendar year 2018. This looks like our typical schedule with the town meetings added in. Somebody like to make a motion for the 2019 planning board meeting schedule?
I make a motion, we accept the meeting schedule for 2019.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Just so you know, we had to do something a little bit different for November and December. We had to move up to the second week, the first week rather than the third week, because when Thanksgiving and Christmas fall, and you have it's a 5 Wednesday month and the month before, so it all comes out the same.
We're still going to have 2 meetings per month.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Okay.
Oh, last week's.
Yep. We need 2 copies of these?
Yes.
Okay, so we have that taken care of. Item C, discussion status report on finishing construction of, acceptance of, uncompleted and unaccepted subdivision streets, including Fairpond Estates. It appears we have a vote to extend the covenant. Is that ready for this evening, Don? It's ready, okay. How long of an extension would we be looking at?
December 31st, 2020.
How long is it? I'm sorry.
2 years.
2 years,
years.
so out to December 31st, 2020. Okay.
How many units they still have to go?
I believe it's something around 12 to 14 units,
Some of it 12 and 16.
12 and 16, okay.
Is that feasible to complete all 16 in 2 years?
That's the longest we give a covenant extension for, is 2 years. So if he's not, he'll have to ask for another extension.
He's built 6 this year, and he built quite a few the year before, so it's just the markets, depends on the market, obviously, but the market's going back.
Okay, so we'd be looking for an extension for the Pierpont Estates covenant dated December 13th, 2006, recorded at the Registry of Deeds in Worcester under Book 40555, page 253 through page 258.
It's been extended numerous times already then, right?
Exactly. Anybody like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we extend the covenant, the Pierpont Estates, as read by the chairman.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? It's okay.
Actually, Carol's a notary, too. No, we can get 5.
Okay, great. Okay, so the second one on that list would be Rocky Hill Estates. Was there any change at Rocky Hill Estates? No change, okay. Piastra Road, scheduled to be done in 2019. Country View Estates and Tobin Farms. So we did have a meeting with last Monday scheduled with the Board of Selectmen, and these two subdivisions were discussed, but it wasn't an executive session, so I think we should wait until the meeting minutes for that are released. But I can tell you that we have basically a resolution for both subdivisions. And the Board of Selectmen are in agreement, and we have direction on which way to go. So, okay. And item D, final inspections associated with site plans, including the AMP Solar Farm, West Dudley. Anything up in there?
I was in contact with the developer again, and they haven't gotten back to me.
Okay.
They wanted a punch list, but I think that they should be on site. I'm out there with Nelson,
Mm-hmm.
building inspector, and with
Jeff Walsh.
Walsh. I should be out there on site with them, maybe possibly the Conservation Commission there as well. But they kind of wanted us to do the punch list for them, but just to go out there and say, this is right, that isn't right. I don't know, it just doesn't seem to me to make sense that the applicant's engineer wouldn't be there with us.
I would agree, and they need to be agreeable to what you're gonna tell them too.
Yeah,
So, okay.
so we're working on it. It's not gonna rain, it's not gonna snow next week either. It's gonna rain, but it's not gonna snow, so
You can still see
still
stuff.
hope.
Okay. All right. We're a little bit early for our first public hearing at 7:15, so, Don, do you want to give us a little update about the agricultural forum that was last Saturday at the Grange?
Quite a turnout. There were about 27 or 28 people.
Okay.
And went through what they would be there for, and tentatively set up a board of the board members. Turns out the selectmen have to vote it. The bylaw change hasn't come back from the Attorney General's office yet, so they will be voting on it probably at the next meeting, whenever that occurs, to officially appoint the members who have volunteered. And it looks like there's an interest.
Okay.
Sort of resurrecting agriculture in town. People are interested in hemp production as well, because, it's, the farm bill just passed today, the federal level. It's all hemp, commercial hemp, not cannabis.
Yep.
But commercial hemp. And there's quite an interest in that.
Was there anybody from Central Mass Regional Planning at that meeting?
It was, the person who's doing that strategic plan.
Okay,
Yes, Kerry, she was there.
okay. Right. And I know I wasn't able to make it. How many members of the planning board was there? You were there?
I was there.
And Don, you were there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it can be a,
Can I just, how many people from the Economic Development Committee were there?
People from who?
Wasn't the Economic Development Committee there? Were they the ones?
I think there were only two.
Just John Breyer?
I think that was, the one did come in at the end.
The woman?
Um,
Is her name Ellen?
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Ellen Priest? Yeah.
But it was about a 2-hour meeting, and the residents all were really enthusiastic about it.
Who ran the meeting, John?
John. And then, Mr. Joseph kind of took over.
how many members of the Board of Selectmen were there?
One.
Paul Joseph?
Okay. All right. And do you want to go over the, do you have anything more to report on the Village District Study?
Still working, wrapping that up with the CMRPC.
Okay. And this was also trying to work in the, was it the block grants or something?
Yeah, we probably have a pretty good chance of getting one for study of infrastructure. It's sort of a plan for getting the engineering in order. We have a pretty good chance of getting that for that area, the general area, around the mill and the northern end of Schofield Avenue.
Would that be for 2019 or 2020?
2019, actually.
Okay.
Probably start in like late summer. I don't think you get notice until about July.
Okay.
Probably start in late August or so.
All right.
Maybe before that, hopefully.
And while we're on that topic, I know it was mentioned at one of the Board of Selectmen meetings I was at, the town's master plan. I'm sure that's, if it's not already expired, it's getting close to being expired, isn't it?
They don't really expire per se,
Okay,
but I'd say it's expired.
yeah.
Figuratively at least.
Do we need to contact someone at Central Mass Regional Planning to ask for assistance in reviewing that and updating that, or doing
It's
what's?
quite a task to undertake.
I know. Typically, they usually ask for an ad hoc committee from citizens at large and members of the planning board and a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
So, when you get a chance, if you could just look at when the last time that was updated, because I'm thinking it was quite some time ago.
2000.
2000 it was updated? Yeah, so I'm sure we're due for an update. All right. Okay, we're currently at 7:15, so we can start our public hearing on a special permit application. This is under D. Okay. Public hearing notice, Dudley Planning Board, in accordance with the provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9 and 11. The Dudley Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 12, 2018, at 7:15 in the Dudley Municipal Complex, Room 321A, DMC, Veterans Memorial Hall, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. 01571, on the application of SEP Dudley LLC, 18 High Street, Plainville, Mass. 02762, for a special permit and site plan approval under sections 3.12.00 and 5.04.00 of the Town of Dudley zoning bylaws to construct a 4.4 plus or minus megawatt large-scale ground-mounted solar voltaic array on property on Oxford Avenue, located within the solar array overlay district, with access from the westerly side of Oxford Avenue in an area approximately 260 feet southerly of the Dudley-Oxford town line. The property is described as being shown on Assessor's Tax Map 212, lot number 13, and consists of approximately 37.57 plus or minus acres in area. A copy of this plan and application may be viewed at the Dudley Municipal Complex in the offices of the Planning Board or the Town Clerk during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at time and place designated. Guy Horn Jr., Chairman, Dudley Planning Board. And this advertisement ran 2 consecutive weeks, November 21st and November 28th. Was that on Worcester Telegram or the Worcester Telegram? Okay. All right. So we have our opening presentation.
All right, I'm Peter from Burton Engineering. Like you said, solar array on Oxford Avenue. Oxford town line, to the north, Dudley, this is North Parsley. It is wooded with 2 areas of frontage on Oxford Avenue. Residences along Oxford Avenue, array in the back. There are some wetlands on site. Access will be from Oxford Avenue via a 14-foot access road. There will be 5 detention basins for stormwater management. A swale along the eastern side to catch any runoff from the neighbors, go into a detention basin along the road. The equipment will be located at a 80-foot diameter turnaround, emergency turnaround. The fire department requested a 10-foot access way around the fence line, which we've done. And that pretty much sums it up. There is work within the 100 feet of some wetlands, so we did file a notice of intent, which we have a hearing next Wednesday.
Put the Knox box on, do it before.
Yep, Knox box on all the gates per the fire chief.
How many gates are there, actually?
We have one on the access road, one in the southeast corner, one in the southwest corner, one in the northwest corner, and one right at the emergency turnaround.
So based on your current design and layout, is any of your equipment going to be visible from any abutting properties? Or any abutting residential properties, I should say?
It shouldn't be. We have more than 100 feet of existing vegetation remaining between those residences. I believe this is an auto shop. This is the quarry, the Ramco quarry. So the closest that any clearing would be to any residences would be about 100 feet.
Is there any residences on the Oxford side?
No,
No.
no. So there might be one right up here beyond the auto shop,
Okay.
but this is all woods. I think there's some, the property to the rear is actually conservation lands.
Okay. And how many acres of this lot would you need to clear to do what you're proposing?
So we would need to clear almost 20. 14 of that would be within the fence line, which would be reseeded and loamed if need be. Outside the fence line would be cleared of tall vegetation, but existing scrubs would remain.
On your current design, around the fencing that's surrounding the equipment, is there any netting or slats on that fencing, or is it open?
No, currently we just have a chain link fence 7 feet high.
Yes, it's 6 feet with 1 foot of barbed wire on top is federal electric code. If there's concern about the easterly side and the visibility there, and the planning board wants to consider slats on that section, because it's really the only possible viewing point of the array, I can accommodate that.
Okay. And as far as screening the fence, everything, you're just gonna leave the existing vegetation outside of the fence?
Yeah, it's pretty significant. You know, along with the hike and grade, you have a lot of, mature vegetation. It kind of seems like overkill to mess with it.
From the road to, say, where the fence is gonna start, or the entrance into your equipment area, what's the grade elevation there difference? Roughly?
Just under 40 feet.
140 feet?
Just under a 40
feet, okay. So it's going up 40 feet. So anybody driving on the road,
Yeah, I mean, you're looking,
you're looking, yeah, at the foot of the hill,
right.
yeah.
I think it's a good out of sight, out of mind location.
Okay. And the only waiver that you were requesting for this was you're gonna do all the electrical work inside of the fenced-in area. It will be underground, but from the fenced-in area to Oxford Dudley Road, you wanted to run those electric lines on poles.
So we're still in impact study with the utility. they actually drive that. So if, we just want some flexibility there.
Okay. But that's typically how it's done, once it exits.
Right.
So you have an inverter inside the equipment area.
Correct.
Once it comes out of the inverter, it usually goes up a pole and to the power lines.
Right.
Three-phase power is available over there?
Yes. Yep, three-phase power supplies all of Oxford Ave. Goes all the way into Oxford and all the way down to the quarry. Then splits off and goes over to the substation. I can't remember the name of that street. Just also wanted to tell the board that I have had preliminary discussions with Greg Ziplokonis, the town administrator, and Lisa Berg, the town assessor, to start the pilot. And just, so they're gonna be sending me a template of what they use for a pilot agreement, so we can start and try and move that forward as quickly as possible, so the town can see the financial benefit of the project as well, which I am very positive that based on the income, all the other projects are giving, we're gonna be in lines with that. So I don't think that's gonna be a tough hurdle. We've started the process.
If you get approval for this project, when would your expected start date be?
So I would, if I can get through planning in Concom, say by the end of January, I should have my impact study from National Grid right around February 1st as well, and we'd be ready to go 30 days after that.
So sometime in March.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, but you had received all the comments back from Graves Engineering and have had a chance to update your drawings to all of what he requested?
Yeah, so we got the first review back. Everything was pretty minor. We adjusted the plans to their 15 comments or whatever it was. Nothing stormwater related. We got them a revised plan set, a response letter. They sent back a letter this morning, basically a clean letter saying that we've done everything they noticed.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a couple. Can you just walk me through the grading of the area?
Of the entire thing?
Yeah, just roughly, just,
Yeah, so
you know, we're going up.
going off Oxford Avenue, the first couple hundred feet would be somewhat flat to a 10% slope, which will be about 40 feet higher than the roadway. The road continues up. Inside the fence, we wouldn't be doing much grading. It would just be clearing and smoothing out any,
So where are the high points at?
consistency. Flattens back out around this detention basin. The turnaround is at a 4% slope, so no issues turning around. Stormwater comes this direction to a swale to this detention basin, which outlets to a wetland. This detention basin catches this, which goes to this wetland. And these two detention basins get a southwest and northwest runoff, which.
So the far left-hand side, that's kind of a high point, you got a valley in between? I left my glasses at home, that's why.
Yeah, no, that's pretty
Valley,
accurate.
we got a ridge here, and then it goes back down to a valley.
Okay. So where the 10% slope is on the access road, all that, any kind of storm water be diverted to the detention basin off to the right-hand side there?
Yep. This,
So no danger of anything being washed out into Oxford Road?
nope. We have a swale along the road as well, which would catch the last 50 feet or so.
Where does that swale go then? Is that part of the Oxford Road drainage system?
So there's a small wetland here that has a culvert, which goes to the French River.
Okay.
So this clean runoff from the stormwater basin would outlet to that wetland and across the street.
And the access road's gonna be crushed gravel? Or crushed stone, I mean?
Yep.
No site lighting anyplace?
No lighting?
I think there might be a light on that pole at the entrance, but I'm not 100%
But in
sure on
the,
that.
in the array itself,
Inside,
nothing?
no.
Right, I think you're within 100 feet of some of the wetlands.
Mhm.
Did you get, so we have a waiver from the Conservation Commission, or
So we have a hearing next Wednesday.
next Wednesday?
File a notice of intent, yep.
Are you within 100 feet of just the one in the center, or some of the other ones as well?
We're outside the 100 foot, well, we're clearing within 100 feet of this one. We're within 100 feet of this wetland up here and the one in the middle.
And the access road is going through a wetland area too, isn't it?
No, so there's a wetland on either side of it.
All right.
So we're not touching any
Right.
wetlands, but
There's an existing cart road there, and we tried to use what was given to us and has been used over the years to access that upland, which was a cart path, basically.
Okay.
You putting crushed stone on that?
What's that?
Putting crushed stone on that? It's a 10% slope at Woney Road.
yeah, there'd be crushed stone.
Be sure about that. but- 'cause
I think we call for at least 6 inches of crushed stone.
Rolled, compacted, whatever?
What was that?
You know, there's another project that had quite a lot of runoff. If the trees came down, we just don't want that to happen again.
No, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not saying it will, but, you know,
these clearing limits should be
Happen again.
the clearing limits.
Either through hay bales or, what we like to do is, when you cut the trees, you grind the stumps and
Yeah.
they make great wetland barriers and are able to divert the water pretty well.
yeah.
Try and recycle everything on site.
And just a question for the approval process we've gone through so far. This has already gone through town vote as far as the overlay district?
The district itself is established on the map, yeah.
So will we have to go through before the town once again?
We have to go before the town once again for the Board of Selectmen to get, in the town administrator to get permission to enter into a pilot agreement with the company, with the solar company. And then once they get the permission to enter into the pilot agreement, then once the pilot agreement is worked out, they would go back to town meeting a second time for a vote of the town.
To accept the pilot
To
agreement?
accept the pilot agreement, yeah.
Right. That's all I've got, thank you.
Could I just ask, what's your intention, or how are you expecting to fasten the, it's gonna be aluminum or galvanized structures for the solar panels. How are those gonna be fastened to the ground?
Picture a 6-foot drywall screw. They actually just spin right in and spin right out, so if ever, you know, at the time of dismantling, it's a very simplified process, and there's no concrete or anything else on site. It's basically a drywall screw, and then it has a flat head on it, which the leg of the frame sits on, and they're all put at the right height.
Okay. Because I've seen some where they do it like in buckets of concrete, where this
That's
won't
not
be like
happening.
that.
No.
You typically see that on a landfill,
Okay.
'cause you can't puncture the liner.
Liner, right.
Not only that, the screws have the ability to go right through rock, so if we hit ledge, which is kind of bony in this area, it'll go right into the rock and secure it as well.
Okay.
So the pilot agreement is typically for 20 years?
I believe so, usually from what I understand, the past pilot agreements were for 20 years with an option for an extension of 10 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah, just so we didn't reinvent the wheel, when I talked to Greg and Lisa, they're gonna send me their template that they've used with the other solar companies in town, and if that's the case, that's fine.
Okay.
And if after 20 years, if we don't get into an extension, what happens to all the equipment after 20 years?
Well, as far as the solar array goes, the lease with the property is an initial term of 20 years, and then we have the discretion of 2 additional 5-year terms,
Okay.
okay? That really doesn't have anything to do, the 2 additional terms will probably coincide with whatever pilot agreement we have. After that, it's, you know, it's either start over or, you know, remove the equipment.
And besides that, we take a decommissioning bond as well. So that if,
So we hold a decommissioning bond for
Yeah.
20 or 30 years?
yeah. In case-
That was listed in town engineer's report. I believe it was
300 something.
$315,000.
Yeah.
Some of the questions I'm just asking, just
Right.
so everybody can hear them.
Yep, yeah, so the decommissioning bond that the town engineer recommended or agreed to was 315,000 thereabouts. And that would just get held until the 20 years is up.
Is there any use for the equipment, recycling or anything?
There is. There is, I mean, everything's recyclable on some level. The solar panel recycling is actually coming, it's getting more prevalent, but, you know, we're in kind of at the beginning stages of a lot of these projects. I don't think anybody's gone through a 20-year cycle that I know of. So, you know, the recycling of things is in its infancy.
Needs
But I
to catch up.
expect, as time goes on and these things reach that 20-year maturity level, that there'll be a pretty good recycling program for the panels. You know, and depending on how things go, you might be just replacing the panels at that time and re-entering into a new lease and a new pilot and everything else, and keep the project alive. I mean, it's tough to forecast that far out, but, you know, when power plants usually don't shut down, right? They usually stick around for quite a while. So if everything's working okay, I hope that there's a continuing lifespan beyond the 30 years, but we'll see.
So if the panels get obsolete, you can just strap new panels on top of the existing framework?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, you could. But these panels have a 25-year guaranteed shelf life. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that that first option will almost always get picked up just because the panel's warranted for that long.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have a couple. So who's going to be responsible for the maintenance of the fencing and everything like that in the event of trees coming down?
So the end owner of the site, which will not be me, will be a third-party independent power provider who buys all these systems, okay? Which I think is already identified, but it's not set in stone yet. We'll have an operation and maintenance agreement that they'll pay on a yearly basis to a firm. And usually what that consists of is mowing a couple times a year, although the seed that is put grows very, very slow, and that's intentional. So there's minimal mowing maintenance, okay, maybe twice a year. And I think twice a year they'll come out and wash the panels. And other than that, unless there's some sort of damage, that's about it. So, you know, the vehicle trips are 2 or 3 a year after it's built. You know, it's meant to just sit there and produce electricity.
And then for the winter time, is there any snow removal performed on the access road for the event fire trucks need to get back there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Snow removal.
Any snow removal on the access road?
If that's required, then that'll be part of the maintenance agreement.
That's all I have.
Okay. So
Whatever waiver request.
we have the one for the telephone poles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already mentioned that. Okay, so if the board doesn't have any questions, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody who would like to make any comments or ask any questions, now's your chance. Okay. Don't have any comments from the public, so somebody like to make a motion that we close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, so we have the one waiver request, and I think maybe a couple of conditions that we really need to discuss. So we have your waiver requests, and I think maybe a couple of conditions. I think one condition would be the slatting on the fence towards the Oxford Ave side. And do we want to make snow plowing part of the maintenance agreement, or?
I mean, I think if the fire department wanted some kind of easement through there, just, you know, if they have to get in there and it's 2 feet of snow in February, it might be a little difficult.
That's agreeable, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything else for?
Well, I went through the ones that have been approved previously, and I've got a few.
Say that again, Don?
Went through some of the solar farms that were approved previously, there were a few things. We mentioned the Knox boxes and all gates, they're there. Parking, loading, or unloading on Oxford Avenue should be prohibited.
No, I think that was added to your plan.
Yes.
The applicant and our future owners will be responsible for adequate maintenance throughout the life of the project. Like we said, if a tree falls down, something blows out in the roads, the applicant, the current, the subject, the successor, the applicant is responsible for maintenance at any time throughout the life of the project. Fire department, we went through that. Construction hours,
Our standard 6 day week construction hours.
six-day week.
Typically, we have a 6 day a week construction period,
That would be-
no work on Sunday,
That's fine.
like half day on Saturday.
What's the hours?
The latest I saw here was 7 to,
I think 7 to 3 or 7 to 3:30 was written in there, wasn't it?
7 to 6:30 is one that I have here, the latest plan that we did.
That would make sense. 7 to 6 would be fine. If-
We'd probably like to add something in there too, that during construction, any debris brought onto the roadway would be your responsibility to clean up on a daily basis. So if you have logging trucks coming out of there and there's dirt that's deposited on the roadway, you need to sweep the road every night after the trucking's done.
It's fine.
Keep it clean.
Yep.
Put the riprap down inside the,
We'll be putting a riprap mat
yep,
to try and
knock it
absorb
off.
most of that,
Some-
but it always gets out there, I
Right.
get it. Yep, that's fine.
Yep,
Last we had was hours of operation shall be 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 on Saturday, and no work on Sunday or national holidays. Sound about right?
Yeah,
I mean, by 5:30 in the wintertime, it's pitch black anyways.
correct. Yep, that's
Be
fine.
up and running by then, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Can you think of any other?
Well, the tracking pad is on the plan, but they mention it anyway, because erosion can be quite a problem.
Right, and the sweeping, daily sweeping,
Yeah.
yeah, just so it's not a mess.
Screening added to the fence, you just want to move the fence closer to Oxford Avenue, or is there any other kind of screening you wanted to put? Some of them put those green slats, which aren't that not that attractive sometimes, but nevertheless, if it's behind a tree, it's not going to show.
Right, and it says 40 feet in the air, so it's up there.
Yeah.
And he's willing to do the slats on the Oxford Ave side.
Okay.
So,
I think that's really the only side that would have any,
right, it's where it abuts residences.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does get costly to add that, so if we can limit it to that, I would appreciate it.
Want additional screening anywhere? I don't think it's really necessary, except for that particular portion.
Yeah, given the
Okay,
fact that only
side.
abuts properties on one side.
And of course, the decommissioning plan, and the decommissioning bond. I have plenty of samples you can look at.
Okay. That'll be in place, when does that need to be in place in the process?
Sorry?
The bond, what's the timing on that being in place, when the construction is completed?
What we've done is taken initial deposits for about maybe a quarter of it, and then do a payment every year for 10 years. I think that's what we did on the other 2 or 3 of
That makes sense.
Yeah. We can work it.
You want to just email me a template?
We can work that out, sure.
Okay.
So everything we've just mentioned,
That's fine,
that's okay with you?
yes.
All right.
No.
Anything else, Don?
There's a general comment from our engineer, too. If the project is approved, then GEI, it's Graves Engineering, recommends that the planning board include a condition in this decision that requires periodic monitoring of construction activities on behalf of the planning board. The cost of monitoring would be borne by the project proponent developer. Such monitoring frequency should be commensurate with the extent of site disturbance. What I think is that we should have a pre-construction meeting when you're ready to go. All the applicable departments sit down and work out a schedule and just how much you can expect to do, when and where.
That's fine. That's typical.
Pre-construction meetings are very good for that.
What do you think is how long do you think it's gonna take for this project from start to finish?
Weather permitting, I mean, if the weather was perfect, believe it or not, I mean, you're only looking like probably a 6-month total construction time, you know, at the very most, and that's like soup to nuts, okay? They go, the permitting and the process is usually longer than the construction. You know, they're pretty systematic how they go together.
Would you be agreeable to our town engineer coming out to take a look once a month or once every other month, or something like that?
That's fine, as long as we can, you know, limit the expense. I just don't want it an open checkbook where
Right,
people feel
no,
they need to
but
show
I mean,
up
if-
every
if
day.
in
You kind of want to set a schedule at the pre-construction meeting, I think.
Right, I mean,
Pretty good idea. Well, you know, 1 month you might have to come 3 times, and 1 other month you might have to come at all.
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's what phase you're on.
Yeah, you have these
What's really important,
inspections.
though, is the erosion, especially when you cut down the trees.
It's fine.
Yeah, so we're looking at, you know, he would be out there, I'm gonna guess at the most 4 to 6 times by the time you're done.
I think the conservation engineer would have quite a say in this, too.
Sure.
We'd probably develop a schedule, right? I
Yeah,
think.
we could work it out, so if the conservation engineer's going to take a look, then our engineer can wait till the next month or the month after that.
It's sort of each has its own jurisdiction. Anything outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction is within the planning board and
Correct.
so forth.
And you would need to have the building inspector there at least once or twice, I would imagine, right?
Oh, yeah. You should be at the pre-construction meeting as well.
I think the pre-construction meetings smooth out a lot of these things, and everybody gets to know all the players involved, who's building what, and, you know, has everybody's phone number, and there's really lines of communication are open, and it works well.
Okay, so you're agreeable to that? All right.
Still the same email you had last year?
Yes.
All right, so Don, we gotta approving the special permit and site plan review tonight?
The way it works is that we have 65 days in the site plan, and we have 90 days from tonight to approve the special permit, but they kind of go hand in hand, so I take a vote for both.
We're all here,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I'm up the 50th day, so
do you have anything printed up for the special permit or the site plan?
we'll get to that. I think we had to. It's the same thing. It's one decision, really.
So we wouldn't
Issues.
take it as one vote or 2 votes?
I think it's one vote.
Take it as one vote.
Just say it's for the special permit, to allow the special permit for use, and according to the way the site plan is designed, so, site plan is designed, but the special permit's the use, it's the yes or no use. So, where the
We could do that as a separate vote, yeah. Okay. So if we could, let's vote first on the one requested waiver. They're requesting a waiver from section 5.04.05F, utilities. Replacement of electric, telephone, or other utility lines and equipment such as water or sewer shall be underground and so located as to provide no adverse impacts on the groundwater levels and to be coordinated with other utilities. What they would like is the ability to use electric poles and above-ground wiring from the inverter inside of the fenced area all the way out to Oxford Ave, correct?
Correct.
So we can take a vote on that one waiver for the telephone poles.
Graves Engineering had no concerns about this, correct?
Right.
Remember correctly? So I make a motion that we accept or grant a waiver
Second.
for the placement of electric, telephone, or the utility lines to be above, to be aerial, once it leaves the solar array area.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. So you have your waiver. And secondly, we would be looking for a vote to approve
See, the special permit and accompanying site plan.
special permit and site plan for a large-scale solar array. I'm just trying to find the address again. This would be for Legacy Landing, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page.
On here,
One page back. That's why I couldn't find the address. So we're looking for approval of a site plan and, what's that, site plan and Special permit.
Site plan.
for a large-scale solar voltaic installation for SEP Dudley LLC, address at 18 High Street, Plainfield, Massachusetts, to be placed on, what is it, 37.57 acres, assessor tax map 212, lot number 13. And the size of the solar voltaic array is 4.4 megawatts. We have a motion for that?
I move to approve the special permit and site plan as read by the chair.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Okay.
On this made and seconded. How will we work with the selectmen on the pilot agreement? When does that take effect? Well, another thing too, for a condition I think we should add is that until the decommissioning plan is in place, there shouldn't be any work done.
Okay, would that be agreeable?
I didn't hear that.
Until the decommissioning plan is in place, there won't be any work done.
Till the decommissioning
Plan is in place.
there will be no start of construction?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Should be pretty straightforward.
Okay, so, and maybe we should say something that the other conditions discussed tonight will be added to the agreement. And then there's a 21-day appeal period after
20.
that. 20-day appeal period after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have 14 days to file with the town clerk, and then there's a 28
20
period
days.
after that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, so you have your permit, your special permit, and we'll write up the conditions. Obviously, you'll get a copy of that. You'll file it with the town clerk. Then there's a 20-day appeal period,
Sure.
and you'll see that after that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
So our next item on our agenda is another special permit, and actually another public hearing with a special permit for residential open space development, but that's not going to take place till 8 o'clock, so we're about 7 minutes away. If everybody's in agreement, we could take a short break and then start back up at 8 o'clock.
Can we squeeze the planner's plate and the
Yeah,
last
that's
items in?
That's a good idea. Why don't we just go ahead
Do you
and
have
do
it,
that?
Don?
I think I already told you what's on my plate.
I think you already gave it to
Working
us.
this a lot, and got a lot of this involvement with the economic development thing, week before Thanksgiving.
All right.
So there's nothing on the planner's plate?
With the agricultural thing that we talked about earlier, the agricultural thing and village district and the block grant.
Okay.
That was already discussed.
And also the block grant, right? Yeah.
Right. So, okay,
Well, we're focusing on, like I said, the area sort of in between West Main Street and the Mill and West Main Street and Schofield, about the first couple of blocks down. And this is gonna be a study, a planning study for getting the engineering up and going. To do the replacement of the water and sewer in that area and possibly sidewalks and just the whole thing, community development, just the block grants too.
okay. Still got 5 minutes. I think we'll take a short break. If anybody needs to use the bathroom.
Motion to take a recess.
Yep, we have a motion. Everybody okay with that? I'm gonna have a second. Motion and second. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, everybody, if we could get back to our seats, we're going to start our second public hearing for this evening. Our second public hearing scheduled for 8 p.m. Public hearing notice, Dudley Planning Board. In accordance with provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 9 and 11, the Dudley Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 12th at 8 p.m. in the Dudley Municipal Complex, Room 321A, DMC Veterans Memorial Hall, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. 01571, on the application of Legacy Landing LLC, 61 Airport Road, Dudley, Mass. 01571. Plan entitled Legacy Landing for a special permit under Section 3.05.00 of the Town of Dudley zoning bylaws to construct a 22-unit, age-restricted, open-space residential subdivision, also known as an OSRD, on property on Airport Road located within the residential 15 district with access from Airport Road and Dudley Hill Road. The property is described as 61 Airport Road, open space residential subdivision containing 12.87 acres plus or minus, as shown on Assessor's Tax Map 227, lots 4, 6, 16.1, and 17. A copy of this plan and application may be viewed at the Dudley Municipal Complex in the offices of the Planning Board or the Town Clerk during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at the time and place designated. Guy E. Horn, Jr., Chairman. Also, this notice ran two consecutive weeks on November 21st and November 28th in the Worcester Telegram. And if you could start with your presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Randy Waterman from WDA Design Group. We're in Westboro. We are the civil engineers and landscape architects for this project. Also here tonight is Bob Ruda from Ruda Realty, and he and his brother Jim are the owners of the entire property that you see and that we'll describe tonight. And then also Pat Burke from my office, one of our design engineers who's worked on the drainage and the road design, is also here to answer questions.
Okay.
But I've got a couple different renderings in the package that you have there, but I thought I could walk you through those for the audience's benefit to understand kind of how we got from point A to B and what we're proposing in specifics.
Sure.
So I'll just start with a couple of the existing conditions plans. I don't know if I can move up so if you can see these or not. This is the smallest scale plan, but we do have some larger scale plans that I will jump to quickly because this one's a little small. So essentially this plan is at 100 scale, so every inch on this is 100 feet. North is directly up on this plan, and the outline of the property that we're talking about is what you see in yellow here. At the top of the site, this is number 61 Airport Road. This is Bob Ruda's house. So Bob's lived at this property for 60 years or so now. He and his brother are both former town employees as well. So that house at 61 is part of the property, and then the house at 26 Dudley Hill Road down here in the corner, the brick house that some of you were just talking about, that is also part of the property. And the property in total that you see here in yellow is just about 12.9 acres. For other reference points, let's see, Nichols College is over here to the west of the property. The Dudley Hill Golf Club is right up here at the corner of this main intersection of Dudley Hill and Airport Road. The existing church is down here at the corner of the property. That's in a butter just to the east of the site. And again, the brick house at Dudley is right here on Dudley Hill Road. That's number 26 for reference purposes. The site is located in a residential 15 zone, which means lot sizes on this area would be 15,000 square feet. That's 1/3 of an acre, and they need to have 100 feet of frontage each. So we'll show you a conventional subdivision plan, which is a plan that we've looked at as far as this application to show what could be built by right on the property today without any waivers from the board. Let's see, the property on the Airport Road side has about 205 feet of frontage, and down on Dudley Hill Road, there's about 250 feet frontage today. The property is generally fairly flat. The elevation out here on Airport Road is about 632, and it's only about 4 feet higher over here in Dudley Hill Road. So it's fairly flat from one side to the other. It slopes off a little bit to the west down to about elevation 416, and then out this direction, to 614 and 618. So there's a little bit of a slope in each direction, with this ridge being right along the driveway at the center of the site. The site has, as I mentioned, the 2 existing homes, and then there's also an existing driveway that crosses through the property through an access and utility easement, and there's an existing house located in this little out parcel that's shown on the property as being just off-site but abutting. That is house number 63. The property has access to public sewer in both streets and water in both streets, and I'll get into how the proposed utility connections would work in just a minute. The wetlands on site have been flagged by our office and located by survey, so the area that you see here in the kind of a green solid color on these 2 corners of the property, those are the wetland boundaries on site. So this wetland, there's a red maple swamp on this side of the site that's about 3 acres in size, and the one over in the corner here is about ½ an acre in size, and they both flow out away from the property. So the center of the property is really the highest spot, and water drains in both directions away from that center ridge. So again, that's just a sort of an overall reference plan. As part of the application process and as part of doing our site planning work that we do on any particular property, we do a site analysis plan, and that's basically what this shows. It might be a little harder to see from the back, but essentially what we've tried to do is we've tried to look at what's the existing landscape on the property, what are the existing soil types, where's access, where are views, those types of things. And so based on all of that information, we have our landscape architects study that, really look at how you get in and out of the property and slopes, those types of things. And from that, that's how we would generate the future plans to determine how you might approach subdividing this particular property. So this gives you a little more information on, where significant trees are on the site, those types of things. So I will just leave that plan out so you can see that if there's questions, and you certainly can look at that after the meeting. So the reason that we're here tonight is the applicant has really 2 options or 2 primary options for development of the property. And one of them is what is called a conventional subdivision plan. So that's one of the options that we're presenting to the planning board. And then the other option is to do something that's more creative than a conventional plan, and that's something that the board allows only by special permit, and that's an open space residential development. So the way your bylaw is written in town is it allows you to do something different, and in most cases the idea is to try and get more creative with the road design, have more open space, have less roadways, less drainage systems, that type of thing. So in order to have the board or allow the board to look at both options, we draw a conventional subdivision plan, which this plan is, and I'll explain this in greater detail. And then we also draw a open space residential plan, which is allowed by special permit, so they can really look at the 2 different plans and decide which one is most appropriate for the property. So this initial plan, this is the conventional subdivision plan. So again, you have the 2 existing homes on the property, and then there would be a new subdivision road that would be connected from Airport Road down to Dudley Hill Road. This road's about 1,100 feet long. It's 26 feet wide. Sidewalks would be at least on one side, potentially both sides, depending on what the planning board decided in the end. There would be a 250-foot long cul-de-sac, and so on this particular plan, there would be 16 new homes. So there's 2 existing homes, there'd be 16 new homes. And the purpose of this plan is to demonstrate to the planning board that you could do this number of lots and develop the land this way without having any waivers from the regulations.
You could have 16 house lots and 12 acres when you got almost 4 acres of wetland?
Yes.
It's in the Res 15 district, sir. So
Yeah,
you
so
only
in
need
the
15,000
Res 15,
square foot
You need
area
1/3 of
per
an acre.
lot.
So you only need
What
1/3
about
of
all
an
the
acre.
runoff and everything that's coming off there?
Sir, let him finish his,
Yeah, I'll go through that.
presentation. We'll open up for questions at the end for the public. Thank you.
So really, the purpose of this plan, again, is to, allow the board to have something to judge the next plan against and decide which one is most appropriate. So really, this plan shows a connection from one street to the other. It's a 26-foot wide paved street, and all of the lots conform to zoning. It conforms to their dimensional requirements. It conforms to their open space requirements. And so this plan is what they call a non-waiver plan. So we wouldn't need to come in and ask for waivers. So that way the board can look at this as a plan that is as of right. Again, this plan, the only open space on this plan is a section of the wetland back here. The rest of the land is all in the back of building lots, and so there is a minimum amount of open space. In this particular case, there's 1.7 acres of open space. That's all that's required by the regulations. So it's minimal. It's really just open space for light and air. It doesn't really serve any benefit to the project itself. But essentially, this is a typical single-family residential subdivision where all of the open space is in private property. It's in backyards of homes. So we looked at this with the owners and talked to them about options. Luckily, your bylaw already has an open space bylaw in it, which many towns don't have these days, which is kind of strange. But so we talked to them about pursuing the open space plan and looking at what the option is. So there are more homes on this particular plan than there are on the conventional subdivision, and the bylaw allows you to have more homes on this plan by getting density bonuses for doing things that are above and beyond just the minimal requirement of the code. So with this plan, we still have the 2 existing homes on the property, but we have up to 22 new building units on the property because they're clustered together. They're on one larger lot, and in this way, by clustering things together, we can create a lot more open space. So with the previous plan that I mentioned, we had about 1.7 acres of total open space, and on this project, we have about 8 acres of open space. So all of the land around the perimeter is a continuous open space piece that's connected. And again, there's a total of 8 acres of open space. And then we keep smaller, tighter building envelopes where each of the units would be, so that the development is compact, it's clustered together, and that building can't happen outside of that development area. This plan would connect to both sewer and water. With this plan, we would connect, the town has requested that we connect to the sewer down in Dudley Hill Road, and then also that the water would be looped through, so you don't currently have a connection between the two for water. So water pressure should be improved by that connection. That would be a benefit to the town. The other thing that I think is a big benefit to this plan is that the previous plan had a road that connected through from the 2 streets. So anyone that's driving up and down either one of these streets could just make this their daily pass through this direction to get to the next intersection. And it really would not be beneficial to the people that live in the project either to have that many people traveling through the site. So one idea that we had to try and open up a little green space through the middle of the site and create sort of a traffic calming device, which sometimes that would be known as a speed bump or some way to kind of make it a little more difficult for people to pass through the site. We've removed this section, the center section of roadway, so essentially we end up with 2 dead-end streets. But this is really just a narrow width pavement, so there'd be about 12 feet of pavement, and next to it there could be 2 little areas of travel area for fire trucks and trash trucks, that kind of thing, so people can get through the site, but you try and make it more difficult, so either if they're going to go through the site, they go much slower, or most people that won't want to navigate all that will just pass the site and stay on the main roads, which is really what we ultimately would like to have happen. By eliminating a little bit of road in here, we really accommodate this person in the center of the site to make a little more of green space here instead of that constant layout with the road and the homes that you have on the conventional plan. Drainage on this property then would be, they encourage you with this type of plan to do more of what is called a low impact development stormwater design. So there's more rain gardens that are used instead of, fenced in detention basin type systems. So there's rain gardens, there can be bioswales, there's vegetated swales, that type of thing. So all of it would be as much more natural drainage system so that water stays in the watershed where it is today. and it's infiltrated back into the ground as much as possible. So that is the way this project was designed. The two areas that I talked about as far as the reason this has more units than the previous plan is that you can get density bonuses under the open space bylaw. And two of the ways that are done in this particular case, we would be restricting these homes to age-restricted housing over 55. So at least one person in the project would have to be over 55. So it's not open to anyone. It's not your normal market housing. It is restricted to age 55. So that means there's less traffic with the, associated with the project, less trips in and out, and obviously it would be quieter than a typical residential subdivision, the alternative plan that we showed you. The second density bonus comes from creating, if you can create up to a half a mile of trails that would be open to the public, then that as well can get additional bonus. So that's part of the second density bonus that we are showing the benefit of on this plan. And that's the dark line that you see that wraps around the entire project. That's just about a half an acre, a half a mile in length, about 2,500 feet of trail. That, I think something that the town's consultant raised the question about, that probably needs to be a public trail, so we probably would add legs for that to come out to connect to the two streets, and if that way, if there are people in the neighborhood that want to come up and walk through the project, they could also access the site that way. Let's see, the driveway that I mentioned that comes to this house 63 with this plan, that driveway is relocated so it would come up through this new street and access into the site. The owners of this property have gone to and met with that person on a couple of occasions to show them the plan, make sure they understand what is being proposed here, and that person, with some additional landscaping buffers that we were proposing, has indicated that he was in support of the project. I don't believe he's here tonight, but I know they've met on a couple of occasions. What's that? It's the one in the center of the property, number 63. Right in the center, yeah. Let's see, the other thing, just I guess for the board's edification, the applicants, we suggested early on in the process that they take these early plans that we did and draft a kind of a letter to the direct abutters, just to notify them what is going on, so it's not a total surprise by the time we get to this point. So they had made a mailing out and have tried to visit each of those neighbors over the last month or so, just to tell them, here's what we're doing, and try and address any questions that they could. So they just tried to take a little bit more of a, an educational or informative stance than waiting until we got too far down the process. But I think the feedback that we've heard has been very, very positive so far.
We went around, my wife and I, in the summer, and we had that letter, and I think you might have seen a copy that explained the project just for that reason, so that if there were any serious concerns of the people that were right around it, we would hear about it. And the only concerns we had was from my closest neighbor in the field, and as Randy mentioned, we talked back and forth a few times, and they were in total agreement with the project. I'm happy to say. We shook hands on it.
So again, one of the big differences between the conventional subdivision and this plan is that this plan is being designed so that these roads would remain private, so that the applicant would be taking care of the roadway maintenance, the open space maintenance, so there'd be homeowners agreement in place so that that would happen. With the conventional subdivision plan, that is being that would be designed as a town road. So when the project is completed, they'd be coming back to the town, looking for the town, requesting the town to accept that roadway and take over maintenance. So again, this is designed over 55 housing with private streets, private maintenance, all by the applicant. I think the only letter that we received was from Graves Engineering, and I think they had a couple of minor questions that I think one of them was on the site distance down on Dudley Road. We have taken a look at that, and I think that meets the AASHTO requirement, but there's probably some tree clearing down there that needs to occur, and so we certainly can document that, and it's something that we would expect that would be required as part of any conditions of approval. And the other thing that I just wanted to take a minute, we didn't talk about the architecture really, but we do have a board that we put together just because I figured it would be of interest to both the neighbors and to the planning board. The units, again, they're designed for over 55 through all the marketing work that they've done. The brokers really have indicated that generally you want to have a two-car garage with each unit, and that's something that we've seen, the same thing in the market. So these are all designed to be about 1,800 square feet as an average footprint, one-story buildings, maximum of 2 bedrooms, obviously a master on the first floor and all the units. But each one is currently anticipated, the way it's shown on the plan, to be a two-car garage unit. And we have 8 duplex units on this site plan and 3 triplexes on this plan. But this is kind of to give the board an idea and the neighbors an idea of what it might look like. And, you know, the final architecture has not been selected at this time, but at least it gives you the idea. Single stories, 2-car garage. These are all the double attached type of units. And I think we do have a letter in the file that the Sewer and Water Board has approved the connection to both those utilities for the project. And again, I think the Graves engineering letter just had 2 minor things that we certainly can address as far as the site distance. And I think they suggested that the trail does need to be marked as open to the public.
I have gone down and talked to the fire chief on a couple of occasions, showing the different plans as they were being modified, and showing the final plan, and he's on board with the final plan in terms of public safety access.
Would that conclude it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to first open it up for the board's questions, and then after that, we'll go to the public's questions. So I'll start with a couple of questions that I came up with while you were making your presentation. So this little, I'm going to call it a bridge for the lack of a better term, that's going to connect the 2 parts of the subdivision.
Yep.
That is passable for a large truck, so a fire truck or a garbage
Yes.
truck, you said, could pass that?
That's correct, yes. We have discussed it with the fire chief, and the idea would be that the center of that would be a 12-foot wide paved trail, so if it's just cars, they would easily drive on that. But the outside of that, there would be a 3-foot wide shoulder on each side that would be improved. And the options we presented to him were they call them grass pavers, but essentially looks like egg crates that are filled with topsoil and grass grows, so you can drive a fire truck right over them.
Okay.
He was comfortable with that.
Okay. So this necessarily wouldn't be a speed bump like they currently just built on Center Road to slow the traffic down at the Nichols College campus. It wouldn't be like that. It would be different.
It's not, it's more, you know, I mean, we call it traffic calming, but, you know, it could be something where there's just a strange bend in the road. It could be more of a speed bump like that, or a speed table. You could put gates here. So we thought if the fire department had a particular request to have more of a gate, even if it was left open, it will tend to slow people down or have them decide. People that don't know the project, as they drive in, would say, oh, I see this gate, and they just turn around and leave. So, but it is designed so that all emergency vehicles could get through there, trash disposal, that type of thought, those trucks would pass through there, once they've been there and know that they can go through.
Because what I'm seeing right now is that if somebody did what you just said, somebody wanted to turn around and leave, their only option is to use somebody's driveway to turn around in.
Yeah, that's why we want to make it so it is passable, and it's not like a permanent gate or anything that would be impassable.
Okay. All right. Getting onto the trail issue, what would the surface of the trail be? Is it going to be paved, or is it going to be
No,
mulch or gravel?
We were thinking probably, you know, gravel would be a better use. Because we want to make it available for walking and biking, we figured it probably would not be grass, but probably something with, you know, crushed stone or gravel.
I think crushed stone sort of packs down better and
Yes.
more durable.
Yep, something like that, but not as far as pavement, you know, just to add more impervious, but if we could do some crusher run or something that's permeable.
Okay, and the fact that it would need to be open to the public, where would you be proposing that if somebody wanted to come to this area to use the trail, where would they park? I mean, right now I'm seeing no additional, like, visitor parking spots.
Right, our preference, let me go back to the overall picture. So again, jumping back to this picture, the trail pretty much wraps around all the upland area that you see here. And we did not show on that plan, but we could easily make connections out to both parts of the street along the edge of the access driveway. And by doing that, what our intention would be is to open it up that anyone sort of in this block that can walk to it, would be able to walk to the site and walk into the site. We prefer not to have any public parking on site. You know, for one, it's a half-mile trail, so I can't imagine there'd be too many people who'd want to drive from another area of town to drive to here to walk half a mile. But we could certainly see people in all these neighborhoods walking from all their streets to the site. So we thought it would be appropriate with the scale of the site to just make the trail connect out to both streets.
I had someone mention to me too that might be possible to connect up with the field area and the college.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Make a connection that way, yeah. But again, you know, it's not that large a project that people that wouldn't seem would really want to drive from other parts of the town to come here to park here to walk a half-mile trail, but.
I mean, I know we have a lot of people that drive up to the high school to walk around the track at night, and, I mean, if they're given an option of a half-mile,
or a quarter mile.
They might want it.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we'd certainly be willing to consider it and look at options and where it could go, but.
Because I just wouldn't want to see people trying to park on either Airport Road or Dudley Hill Road, because neither
Right.
one of them is very wide.
Yep.
Okay. So the other thing that I have to bring up is on your density. So I read through our bylaw, and I read your application. And the way I read the bylaw and the way I read your application is that what you showed on your first plan, the conventional subdivision, you were gonna be able to get 16 house lots.
Yep.
And the density bonus, or the density bonus, for every 4 age-restricted dwellings, you get an additional dwelling. The bonus density shall not exceed 20% of the maximum number. So when I looked at your application, this was 16 plus 2 for the aged dwelling.
16, but if you get 4 in the 16, so you can get up to 4, but you can only do 20%, which would be 3.2. Because if you get 3 units under that density bonus total, so 20% of 16 would be 3.2 units. So we're saying under that particular section, we're looking at three additional units.
Okay, because I didn't,
And then you can get 1 per each 4.
right.
And we have 16, so we could get 4 total, but we can't, that would be more than 20%.
Right, but when I was looking at your application, I thought, I don't have it with me here, but the application, do you have a copy of that?
Yep. You want to see?
Yeah, if you could, just so I can see the math again.
That's the cover letter on the
Again, the top of page 3 is where the calculations were made.
Yeah, I get the top of that, is the top of page 3 has the calculation on it. So if you could get 1 additional unit for every 4 age restricted, so we have 16 units, so that would tell us that we could get 4 density bonus units for age restricted housing, but that would be more than 20% of 16. So if we use these 20%, that would tell us we could get 3 additional units for the age restricted. And then it's a similar one for the trail. If it's 2,500 feet of dedicated trail, that would be 3 additional units.
Okay.
That's how we got to the 16 plus 6.
Okay. Yep. Anybody else have any other questions?
Just had one question about the two existing, 26 Dudley Hill and 61 Airport. Are those existing dwellings going to stay, or are those being taken down? They're staying. And you live at 61?
Yes.
sir? Are you going to stay there, or just curious?
That's a magic question.
Oh, well, I'm just curious.
Sell it and screw.
I'm actually hoping to live in one of the 22 units.
Oh, no kidding.
That's how we got started in this whole adventure, because I know I look a lot younger, but I am retired. You know, looking to downsize, even though I'm in an apartment now, it's on the second floor of 61. So in looking around, you know, we checked the one in West Dudley and thought, hey, this is, you know, pretty appropriate to, you know, downsize, have no maintenance outside, and grow old in, and be able to get around. And that's kind of the underlying concept here. Is there'd be a homeowners association eventually to take care of the maintenance, make their own decisions about that, and we hopefully construct them so that the impediments, you know, to say a wheelchair or whatever, you know, would be minimized.
So they're building yours first, and you're watching the rest of them go up?
Well, I don't want to say for absolute 100% that I'm going to live there, because I don't know what the price is going to be yet, so we'll go from there. But I am getting sick of the second floor.
Okay.
The stairs keep getting longer every day.
Anybody else?
For the trail for the second plan that you proposed, would that be like an advertised public trail? Is it gonna be signs that say public trail access or anything like that, or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to the board ultimately, how you would like it identified. Again, our preference would be sort of to play it down a little bit and not try and encourage anyone from the entire town to come here. It's a small, it's 12 acres, almost 13 acres of land, so it's fairly small, but if the board felt that, you know, that there would be enough use of the property and would prefer to have it, say, public trail, then certainly that could be done.
It almost sounds like, we'll call it a public trail, but is it?
Sir, you'll get your chance. Okay, any other questions?
No, I'm good. Looking forward to this is the public.
Is each unit gonna have a two-car garage, or is it one car garage per unit, but they're combined, so it's a two-car garage?
No, two-car garage per unit right now. We've talked about the option, maybe, there's 2 units on here that are triplexes. So we're thinking that might be an option where if somebody just wants a single garage, it might be easier just to do that. And so we could see in the end that some of them might end up just being single units that have a single garage. But they're designed so they fit on the plan right now. On the site plan is all 2-car garage. And if any of them got built smaller, obviously there's a little more space.
And do you anticipate any visitor parking, or would someone visiting have to park in the driveway?
They would park in the driveway. So right now, I mean, ordinarily for this type of unit, you'd have 2 cars, you know, code-wise, 2 cars per building. And so right now, you've got 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars on the driveway. So you really have 4, so it's pretty heavily parked.
And can I ask you, you said that you looked at the site and did some soil testing and stuff like that. Would this site be applicable for these units to have basements, or would they be built on crawl spaces, or would they be built on slabs?
Right now, we were thinking probably slabs. I mean, a lot of times we'll want to go to full basement if you have enough of a slope and drop-offs, you could have walkouts. Those are always enjoyable and more valuable. But in this particular case, these are all soon-to-be slabs right now. The soils testing, there are pretty good soils on site, Woodbridge and Paxton soils. We've done a soil evaluator, has done perk tests with drainage systems and so forth. So, you know, I don't think there would be any problem if some people wanted to go, you know, to have a full basement. But I think slabs is what we're thinking right now would be simplest.
Okay, and you've already got the approval from the Water and the Sewer Department. Where are you in the process with the conservation?
We were waiting to go through this process and get more direction on the special permit, and then we're essentially ready to file. We have to just wrap up the drainage calculations and prepare the notice of intent. So we flagged the wetlands, located them by survey, and so we're ready to file at any time.
And based on your survey, is there, I've driven by the property, I don't really know it that well, but would there be a lot of, is there a need for a lot of lot clearing here, or is it pretty much all open field?
No, it's, let me just see if I have. This is a plan that gives you a pretty good idea, but you can see the number of different shots on here that are meadow. And on this plan, all of that area is an open meadow. There's a tree, a hedgerow on both sides of the driveway, and then both wetland areas are red maple swamp, so they're more wooded in both of these areas. So all of that is really open meadow today. And you can kind of see that by the pictures. Fairly level, open meadow.
Okay. Could I start taking the questions from the public, please? Come up, sir. If you could sign in when you sit down, there's a sheet to sign in, please.
I have a short sheet in here. Yeah, you can have mine. It's just sign in. Okay.
Apologize for not being a little quicker with that. I am Richard Clark. I live at 65 Airport Road, which is the other side of 61, if you will.
Okay.
And it sounds like we're going to have a lot of traffic. And I'm just thinking in terms of this trail, for example, which I'm not exactly sure how this plays out, but this is the trail indicated here?
Yes.
That's my backyard.
Correct.
Okay. Is this thing illuminated?
No.
No. But we're going to have some number of folks that are going to be tracking through, essentially has been my backyard, if you will. How do we ameliorate that?
Well, you can see, this is the aerial photograph, so you can see you have a fairly dense backyard right here, wooded. This is currently open meadow right now.
Are you putting any buffer in here at all? Anything? And I'm not just thinking of my own self, of myself.
Right.
There are other abutters as well. You know, the guy next door to me, his is a more open area perhaps. And there's obviously going to be traffic in back of his property. It's not there now.
Well, again, that was one of our discussions we just had with the board, is that we'd prefer to see less people and not open this up to an entire town.
Right, but once you've opened it, you can't control the number.
That's correct, you can't.
You know, if you have it public access, it's public access, and as was mentioned, people will walk a quarter-mile track and go some distance to get to that. This is a half-mile, it's a fairly, you know, leafy, rural type of a setting, a little probably more relaxing and more meditative, you know, than the track up at Shepherd Hill.
Different view, yes, for sure.
So what are we going to do? Are we going to put anything in here? I know there's a big to-do often with these solar arrays, planting trees and trying to keep them somehow separated from other people's property, at least the sight lines.
We had not proposed anything as of yet because your yard is so dense. So, and this is, you know, this is at the same grade essentially as your house, so with the trees in between it, you wouldn't see anything here. But if the board felt like something was...
I beg to differ. I can see turkeys out there, I can see deer out there.
Well, probably not
I'm going to see
right
people
there,
out
but-
there.
Yeah.
And people will be walking their dogs as well, I suspect.
Yeah, that's your house there out at the street. You can see the wooded area right here. Like you say, the next guy is
You're
more
making it
open.
sound like the Berlin Wall. It's not.
No, I'm not.
It's an
I'm
open
just-
area there, and we will see traffic.
Yeah, okay. Well, we certainly would be willing to consider if we could
I would like
do
that to be
something to
considered
improve the
somewhere along
buffer.
the way. The other thing is now, the access is going to be the driveway adjacent to 61.
That's correct.
That is a driveway. Is that going to be enlarged?
Yeah, a little bit from what it is today, but that's where it comes in today. There's the barn that's right here. So the barn, which is in pretty tough shape, needs to be removed, and this driveway would come in at that location.
Okay.
And it's
Now-
24 feet of pavement.
Your concern about what is visible in terms of my property,
Mhm.
on one side, that barn is pretty much what separates me from that driveway.
Yep.
With that barn gone, I've got a big open area there.
Yep.
I'm gonna see a lot more traffic there than I'm
Yep.
seeing now, that's for sure.
Yep.
So are we talking about something there in the buffer?
Well, we just showed the normal street trees that they have in the subdivision regulations, but in that area.
Well,
we-
they don't exist now.
No,
the
those are
normal
proposed.
trees that would be there in a subdivision which doesn't exist. So we're gonna put something in there
That's
where
what
the
I'm-
barn exists, right? Something of a barrier then?
That's what I'm saying. We show 4 evergreen trees on here, but we certainly could meet with you and look at that and talk about something.
4 evergreen trees are gonna have to grow real fast, because that's a pretty big barn.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty long.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, so that is going to enlarge in terms of the driveway.
That's
So you're
correct.
coming my way with it, I assume, because 61 is pretty much in place right now.
Right. There's some pavement on that side that we can remove a little bit, but there's not a lot on the barn side, unfortunately.
I am concerned about the parking issue.
Well, I mean, just hearing if, again, if the board really feels like it's mandatory to have some parking, we would suggest that it's down at this end of the site, because where the driveway comes out, there's plenty of areas down here where you could put some gravel parking. It wouldn't have to be paved. You could have a couple parking spaces.
One of the things I'd ask you to keep in mind is obviously these are intended for people who are 55 or older, but those folks actually do have some family and some friends occasionally who might care to visit. So where are they going to go? Those driveways could fill up pretty fast. I'm not seeing a whole lot of options there, other than parking along that driveway area, which is going to be widened. And again, they're coming in my direction, if you will, a little more than I may be all that comfortable with. Another question I would ask is, what typically happens to the abutters' property values when something like this is in place?
Depends in every different town is gonna be different on what are the condition and values of the abutters' properties, but these homes are bigger than many of the homes around here. I mean, all of the homes on these streets are smaller than what is proposed. Some of these other newer ones that have been built along Airport are bigger than these, so we would not expect them to reduce in any way. I mean, these are gonna be valuable, brand-new, constructed homes.
Oh, I understand
Fully
they're gonna be
accessible, so,
brand new, fully
yeah, they're not-
accessible and all of
yeah.
that, but I'm just asking about the abutters' properties. You don't know in terms of what impact that would necessarily have on the abutters' properties.
This would not have if you compare it to the conventional subdivision, this would be better for the neighbors in a conventional subdivision with kids and more things in the yard and no public open space. This has 8 acres of the property is protected, so it's.
Okay. One other thing, and I mentioned this to Mr. Ruda, Airport Road is a major access road at this point. It wasn't that way always. I mean, when I first moved down there, you could walk down the middle of that road and not expect to run into much of anything. Now you wouldn't want to step out there with your eyes closed for more than 3 seconds. You're going to run over. We have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Nobody, public vehicles, town vehicles included, pays any attention to that. No matter how you cut it, there's going to be more people here, there's going to be more traffic. You got 23 units, you get 2 cars per, my math, that's going to be 23 times 2. I think that comes out to what, 46?
I would do the math
Right,
a little
and then you've
differently.
got some number of folks that are maybe want to go on this trail. I would love to see the police department give some thought to policing that area and doing so aggressively in terms of cutting it down. Because it's in Indianapolis 500 something. My God, you don't want to walk on that road. And we don't have any sidewalks up where we are now. That's enough for me, I think.
Okay. And I think the only response to that last comment was that Graves Engineering has reviewed the proposal that we have in front of you and had indicated that sight distance in both directions on Dudley was more than adequate, so they didn't have any concerns over coming out at that location, but I agree, I think.
How often have they driven?
How often, what?
How often have they driven? How often have they driven on Airport Road? How often have they stood there trying to get their mail while some idiot is going 50 miles an hour up and down the road?
I don't doubt they go faster than they're supposed to. That's
Okay.
not unusual, but I'm just telling you that the
Okay,
consulting
no, I'm
engineer
just
that
saying,
the
you're
town has
taking a
hired.
survey and you're looking at an aerial photograph.
we did not do
Everything
that.
fits in nicely and it's neat.
Yeah.
But when you're out there trying to get your mail,
Yeah.
you gotta watch your backside because
I
you
hear
don't know
you.
what's coming next.
I'm not arguing that.
Okay, but I am.
Okay, I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to speak? Ma'am, if you could come up to the microphone so people at home can hear you and sign your name on the paper so we know who you are, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Linda Poulin, and I live at 31 Dudley Hill Road. You had told me that my water would improve the pressure. I have that complaint because my water has been bad since I've moved. Someone cannot take a shower and actually wash dishes in my house at the same time.
So her house is located just past the intersection of Hall and Dudley,
Right.
right there across the street
So
from the project.
we're right across from the project, right here. If you run the sewage from this direction, that's going to hurt me, isn't it?
In what way?
If, in pressure. We already
talking
don't
sewer
have
water,
enough
no?
pressure.
Are you talking sewer or water? Sewer should have no impact on you whatsoever. It's all
I'm
gravity.
talking water.
Okay, so
We
water
don't
now.
have any water pressure already.
Yep, right.
So
So,
if you're running your
well, connecting,
water
the idea is to
over
connect the
here.
water line, this is what the town wanted, connect the water line from here down to here. So now you
To down
improve,
here.
yeah, so connect
So
these
this
two.
will improve our water.
Yes, it'll
Okay,
improve,
that's
it should
wonderful.
improve pressures, I can't, not quality,
Pressure.
it shouldn't affect quality.
Because there's houses over here also.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Yeah, that was a suggestion by
That was
the
one.
water and sewer
And of
board.
course, there's always this problem right here. The traffic here is awful.
Mhm.
People pull out right here in this Y. Everybody's pulling out because one, I've complained, I don't know how many times, that this light is always out. It's been fixed and it blinked all the time for a year. And then it went out again. And what happens is these people can't see these people coming from this direction, so they actually pull out here. I don't know how many times I've seen people almost hit each other.
When you say light, are you talking about a street light?
Yes.
Oh.
The street light here is been out, I don't know, 3 times since I've been there and for years, for a whole year.
Okay.
And this is where the road is, right here. And this is where you are gonna come into, right here.
Mhm. Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
I've got this thing.
On the roadway for the open space subdivision, are you proposing sidewalks on either side of the roadways?
I don't believe there are any on the plan right now, no, just, again, it's a small, compact little project, so people can walk along the edge of the roadway to each other's homes and walk on lawns, so didn't really seem necessary. Again, trying to minimize the amount of drainage that's required and
Pervious area.
earthworks and costs.
Okay. Sir, you can come up.
I got a question about the drainage that comes down. I know there's a lot of problems coming from that church, coming down that way. People's houses and basements getting
Down this
flooded, yeah, coming
Yep.
down this way,
Mm-hmm.
over here. And with your walking trail there,
Mm-hmm.
this is, now, right now, is this the deciding factor if you're gonna approve this to go on forward, or this meeting tonight, is this gonna,
This
is
is their,
this the final decision that you're gonna give them the okay to go ahead and do this, or?
this is their submission for their special permit and for the open space residential subdivision. I believe that they would have to come back with a definitive plan for the roadway, is that correct?
Well, in this particular case, we're creating this as a private street, so this is just an easement, but we'd have to come back for an approval not required plan because, as I mentioned earlier, the houses and the 2 parcels inside, so we'd have to change all of these around.
I'm seeing our town planner shaking his head.
It comes under,
It seems like a lot of stuff is up in the air here. It's like, maybe it'll be like this, or maybe it'll be like that. I mean,
more than one dwelling on a lot. This is from the subdivision regulations. Not more than one building designed or available for use for dwelling purposes shall be erected or placed or converted to use as such on any lots within the subdivision or elsewhere in the town without the consent of the planning board. Such consent may be conditioned upon the providing of adequate ways furnishing access to each such building and adequate improvements in the same manner as otherwise required for lots within the subdivision. If more than one house or residential unit is anticipated on any lot, now or in the future, or on such definitive plan, then these details need to be shown. It's expressly understood that the approval of any lot on the definitive subdivision plan is implied for one residential unit unless otherwise stated. So the planning board has adopted that section of chapter 41, section, whatever section that was, 81, I don't remember the number. Anyway, planning board has adopted that section of the subdivision control law, so that it probably won't be the same exactly for roadway construction. It'll be more like, it's the same this way, but it's probably a little bit different this way, the width, the travel lanes.
So we had actually asked for waivers on that, and I know we've talked to you in the past about how this was being designed, and there was some discussion, I think, while back with the board about whether this be private road or public road, that type of thing. And so we've come forward with a private street so that the town doesn't have, we would not be coming back to request an acceptance, and so there'd be no maintenance by the town.
No.
So the way this is done is, this is just an easement as an access driveway through the site,
That's
and
right.
it would be privately maintained. If it was a requirement, and we have asked for a waiver from the section that requires any frontage on these units, that is in our waiver request
I
package.
don't think frontage is an issue.
What's that?
I don't think frontage is an issue. It says right here, too. Planning board may conditionally approve an OSRD definitive subdivision plan that does not substantially comply with the concept plan, special permit, and so on. It says the planning board may find, well, backing further, it says that the planning board may find a substantial variation. If the planning board determines the definitive subdivision plan does not substantially comply with the concept plan, which is what we're doing right here, and so on. So I think the intent of this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my first one here, but I think the intent of this was that you get an idea that this is how it's going to be developed. This is sort of the horizontal pattern, whatever you may want to put it.
Right.
And you come back with, it's not a conventional definitive plan in the sense that it's going to become a public road, but it's for the construction standard, like I said, roadway this way, depth of utilities and all that sort of thing, and maybe it's a little bit different this way.
Right, because as you're constructing this, we have to have our consultant town engineer review this, and what he's used to reviewing is what is in our subdivision rules and regulations. So we're gonna require you to build it to that specification, because that's what he knows how to inspect.
There'd be some waivers involved, but, it's, generally it's to that.
Yeah, and again,
standard.
that's fine, we could do it either way. The layout does not need to change. We actually designed this originally with a 50-foot right-of-way that came in with a bulb that turned around here so that you met the mathematical frontage.
The layout doesn't have to change.
But yeah, so the layout doesn't need to change, but it just seemed like now you've added one more step to go through. We would intend to ask for waivers on the road anyway, but if you felt like that was the only way to do it, your regulations do say that you can waive any section of the open space bylaw. And so we have requested that you at least consider those waivers. We think they make the most sense, but if it needs to be done that way, then.
Matter of construction plans,
What's that?
it's matter of construction plans, the way that you would.
Yeah, we'll have full construction plans, and graves would be, we assume would still be, even though it's a private street, involved in reviewing the construction.
Right,
You don't want to call it a definitive plan, maybe that's one thing, but it should be, that's up to the same standard anyway.
I mean, I could definitely see you working this as two phases, one phase coming from Airport Road, one phase coming from Dudley Hill Road. But the thing that we would want to make sure, because this is all going to be built on a single lot, in a definitive subdivision, what we have is, we have lot releases per lot. So until the road and the infrastructure is built up to a certain phase, we don't give a lot release. So here, we don't really have that lot release hanging over your head, and what we have to make sure is that when you put in your infrastructure, that everything's correct before you start building the houses. Because the last thing we want to do is have an inferior road or improper infrastructure. You get 1 or 2 units built and sold, and then all of a sudden, we've got problems that everything has to be ripped up and you know, we don't wanna have that happen. I'm sure you don't wanna either.
Potholes, sinkholes, you know, you don't want that.
No, obviously,
Just-
no, that's
you're
not
the same
something they wanna see, but, yeah, no, we can work with you on whatever mechanism you think is appropriate.
Right, because we're
In
losing,
the same manner, it doesn't necessarily say it's, yeah.
we're losing the lot, basically what I see is we're losing the lot release, and we're also losing, I guess we could still use the Form H that the developer fills out
Yeah.
and gets signed off by the engineer. We could probably still use the Form H,
Yeah.
where every step that you do, like, you put in the underground utilities, it gets signed off and approved. You put in the detention basins, they get signed off and approved. We could still work that from a conventional subdivision side. But the last thing we want to see is, you know, it start out in phases and we lose control over what's
Right.
getting done.
Never gets completed. or
Right.
whatever. Yep, no, we agree 100% with.
I mean, it's our preference
Mhm.
to have it as a private way, so then the town doesn't have to maintain it or
Okay.
take care of it.
So basically, we would show a right-of-way, we're looking for waivers, we could talk to you about those, and try and leave the
Yeah.
construction system the way it's shown here.
The construction standard's the same
Yeah.
as the subdivision,
Right.
if you go a regular roadway. It'll
Okay.
take the same amount of traffic, essentially.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is kind of the first step, to answer your question, this is kind of the first step. They made a preliminary submission last year, just with the idea, this is what we're looking at. So this is their first formal public hearing that we're having, where the public has a chance to voice their input. We're getting your input, and we're looking at the project as a whole, and how it will benefit the town versus, you know, detract from the town. I mean, the big benefit to this type of development, obviously, is with this number of units and 55 and older, the town is probably saving anywhere from 30 to 50 children moving in if this was a conventional subdivision, and we don't have to pay for the education of those kids. If this is more of a condo setting or a townhouse setting like they're proposing, the roads are maintained by the homeowners, the town doesn't have to take care of that. Another thing the gentleman was asking about property values, if it is a homeowners association, these yards and the road are gonna be maintained probably much better than the town would maintain the road, or individual homeowners would maintain the yards. So, I mean, it's gonna look good all the time, you know, and they're gonna have the money to fix the things that pop up. Whereas, you know, if there's a pothole on your street, the town may come by and put some coal patch in and consider it done for another year, whereas this street, if there was a pothole, they'd come out and fix it, and it would be, you know, the way.
Think so?
I think so, because this,
I'll show you a couple private roads in this town right now.
this isn't a
You
private,
can't-
this isn't a private road, this
It's
is
not
not.
private?
It's a
Well,
common driveway.
It would be private, but it would be owned by the homeowners association, so if
The people who live there.
the people
By
who,
the people who live there, yeah.
right, and they're gonna be paying a monthly fee to maintain all of this. So if their roof leaks down the road, they need a new roof, they're covered. If the road is cracked, they're covered.
There are many other private streets in town that probably don't get maintained, but they don't have a homeowners association, that's the difference.
It's just
A
people who
lot
live
of the
there.
older roads may be private streets and not open to the public necessarily, but the people don't have any responsibility to maintain them. The town still maintains them as a private street often, or doesn't because of that, but this is a different situation.
If,
Built as a new road to current standards, and there'd be homeowners association, people would pay into a fund to take care of the maintenance.
if you'd like to see what one of these looks like, there is one other one in town right now. It's built out.
Right down, going towards Southbridge in the back road, yeah, I know the guy built them.
Yeah, so that's John's Way.
Been building.
I believe it was Oakhurst Estates, or Oak Estates, something like that.
It's kind of what this one is.
It's a smaller
Yeah,
My
division.
friend owns the house right, that Spalding Ranch, right in front where you pull in there.
It's a smaller development, only 10 units, I believe, 5 duplexes. But a smaller lot, because I think that was,
Long
that
time
was,
to sell, too,
was
because
built on
sitting
5
there for
acres.
A long time.
Yeah, but the economy's better now, I hope.
My problem. I'm just worried about all the people in the traffic, that's all. It just seems like there's an awful lot of houses there to dump in there, you know?
well, I think with you know, the small connection, the 12-foot wide roadway bridging the two sections, I think that's gonna deter a lot of people from wanting to go through there. I think that only the people that will go down there will be the people that live there, and if they do go down and they see that, they may turn around and go back.
Another thing, right, okay, they're saying they want a special variance, right? Because they're getting extra, because they're gonna put in that walking trail, right?
Not variance.
But we don't really want the public to be able to use it, but we want the credit for it to be a public use. Well, I don't really get that 100%. That ain't nailed it down.
Well,
either.
the bylaw states it has to be
Because
open.
you said
The
yourself.
bylaw states it has to be open to the public.
Yeah, so another thing, parking. You want people to come back? I like to take my dogs for a walk. I love to go walk over there. I drive distances all over to go take my animals for a walk and go for a walk, so, you know, that'd be a nice thing, but like you say, where are you gonna put the cars? Where are you gonna put the traffic? Who wants to go in there?
Right. Well, you can walk, right?
Huh?
You can
Yeah, I got
walking
2
distance?
feet. I can walk anywhere I
Okay.
want. God bless me with that for now.
Okay, so be sure you pick up after your dog.
Huh? You know what? That's a whole nother story in that church right there. With Mr. Ruder's dad gave that property. And your father told me when I bought my house that they'd never build a house down in the back of you there. They would never build down there. That's his words right out of his mouth.
I haven't heard that from him, but
You haven't heard it, no. God bless him. He's been gone for well, coming close to 20 years probably now, but he's told me.
I actually built that house back there with my father's blessing, so that house number 63
What,
was mine.
the big house in the back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes.
That's
But,
what you're talking.
no, I'm talking all in here.
By the church.
That's all right. It doesn't matter either way. He'd probably roll in his grave anyway.
Okay. Any other
But
comments?
That be it. It is what it is. It just seems like it's an awful lot of houses there for what it is. I mean, it's gonna be, you got the money, you do whatever you got, you'll get it passed, but I don't know. Awful lot of houses there for, it's gonna disrupt a lot of people. Another thing, how long are they gonna be building these? How long is the construction and the noise gonna be going on through this whole process? How long would it take to build that actual, is it years, a couple of years, or?
It's gonna depend on a lot of different factors that we don't know today, but if it's built in 2 phases, you'd probably build one from one side or the other first. Maybe it's,
So all the noise and construction's gonna be going for a long time.
it probably is a couple-year plan, I would think, certainly.
So all these people are gonna be having to suffer with that too around here.
Yeah, whether it's a conventional plan or an open space plan, I mean, that's given. The board, you heard at the last hearing, if you were here, that they control the hours of work and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
They'll have conditions that everybody has to meet, but shy of that,
I go to work all day, so I don't do that.
These units should be more desirable than a single-family home, because there's not many of these units, in Dudley, there's no other units like this available. So, and there is a demand now for 55 and older housing.
If I may, I suspect that, as you mentioned, the church parking lot appears to be adjacent to that trail. That's probably where folks will find that they'll be parking if they're accessing the trail. Possible.
No, because the priest won't let you even walk through the parking lot with
Well,
the dog there.
Let me amend that to say that they would probably try to park there. Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Find a way to park right on the side of the road.
Anyone else like
Make
to
it
speak?
traffic jam.
Come up, Mr. Raymond.
Yeah, Richard Raymond, Corbin Road. Generally, I come to these hearings and I'm on the negative side of things. But as I look at this project here, I'm seeing the differential of what they're asking for versus what they can do is approximately 6 units, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, and in the 6 units, by getting 6 more units, they're creating more open space along with a public access trail
Yep,
and private roads.
yep.
You mentioned earlier, what would be in the best interest of the town to put 6 more extra units on the tax rolls, okay, restricted to a 55 community, okay, with more open space and public access trails, I think that, has a lot of benefit to the town. And so from that perspective, I actually support the whole plan. I think it's a great idea, and you're absolutely right. More and more people are looking for 55-plus communities. And as far as traffic goes, that's the town's responsibility through the police, fire, and everything. You have to monitor it. You have to plan for it. And fortunately, Airport Road is one of the wider roads in town, which kind of makes it the raceway that it is and shouldn't be. But everybody that's racing up and down that road, they're racing up and down that road now, with nothing in that field, and no houses in that field. So, I mean, maybe with more people there, maybe we can get more policing action, maybe we can get more infrastructure you know, to support what's going on in Airport Road. The town has an economic development committee, and the economic development committee, I understand, really supports this in many ways, and based on the growth of the town. I'm on record with your board, and as well as the town meeting, is saying, you know, residential land should be used for residential, and if every now and then you have to tweak it to make it, to keep it residential and keep the original intent of the zone, okay, that's great. I think that's a great thing to do, versus, you know, we've had differences on what residential in other areas gonna be. So I certainly understand, you know, the concerns of some abutters, the what ifs. I've been through that in other areas, you know, the what ifs. But your comment about what's in the best interest of the town, you know, complying to the rules and regulations, bylaws, constructions, and all that other stuff, that's up to the different boards and what you're gonna have to require for that decision to be made. But I think this is a no-brainer for the town. That's my only comment on this. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Muslim cemetery, what you're saying.
Ms. Simsek?
Don't put it in my backyard, don't put it in your backyard. That's how it goes.
My name's Joanne Simzak. I'm kind of like a townie that's been here forever. I've been involved in an over 55 development, the one on Oakview Estate. So you do have some guidelines in place as to some of the concerns you had about private road holdbacks, everything that's involved. I think it was very generous to give us the two proposals to look at. If you really think about it, and if you can visualize, if you've ever been up to Shepherd Heights in Dudley, and you want to take that subdivision and you want to just plant it on that lot, that's basically what you would be looking at, because those are 15,000 square foot lots with 4-bedroom houses, with lots of children into the area who turn into teenagers, with lots of cars. If we're concerned about traffic, we could have more traffic from that type of a subdivision than we might from this. The advantage of them picking up a few extra units, I don't think holds a candle to having the 16 houses with 4 bedrooms per unit. The effective use of the land, if you have concern, you need, if you're in a butter, get in your car and go look at some of these over 55 developments. I just came out of Uxbridge today looking at 2, very similar to this. Those houses are 340 to 370 for the same amount of square footage with a 2-car garage. They are very nicely set up. You were concerned about off-street parking. They are required to park within the driveway. They do have a little bit of area along their roadway where maybe you could park certainly on one side versus another. So when you get to these type of developments, they take a few more things into consideration. But you need to raise your comfort level and go out and look at a few to see how nicely done they are and how they serve a purpose in the community for the people who want to downsize, give effective use of the land, and keep a lot more open space and less congestion than you would looking out of your house, looking into the backyard of an above-ground pool, an in-ground pool, a swing set, a sandbox, and everything else in the world. So for your privacy, you're never gonna control what is by you unless you wanna buy the land. So I think it's a great proposal. The community needs it. We only had one. It took a long time to sell because it was a new concept. Now it's a little more accepted with the public, and it's also about a different time of the market. We came out of a dip. You're seeing right now these over 55s are doing pretty good. But I think you need to get out and look, go through the one in Webster. They've got a waiting list to get in there. So I think it's a positive thing. I think you need to have more faith in your boards, your planning board, your Board of Health, your conservation. That's their job to make sure everybody is in compliance with what they're supposed to do. And I have a lot more faith that the people serving on them bring in the experts they need to look at it, to give this a chance to get all the data in to be able to make a good analysis. So I think it's a good project. I think it'll go well in the town.
way, I don't think anyone has indicated a lack of faith in the board or in any of the boards that have been mentioned here. And I appreciate the thought that I might make a couple of road trips and see how other people are living. I think that's, expansive, obviously a great idea. I do have some concerns as an abutter and as a very much affected abutter in two respects. One is in terms of access, it's going to be right next to me. It's not in Uxbridge, it's not in Webster, it's not somewhere down the road, it's next to me. And then right in back of me, there's going to be some amount of traffic in terms of foot traffic. I don't know what that means. No one here can tell me, but I can anticipate there's going to be more than there is now, because that gets pretty wet out there at good times of the year. And you'll be walking through mud right now, or at least other times of the year. They're not there now, they will be there at some point. So it's going to change. It's going to change my situation. God love the people in Webster, God love the people in Uxbridge. I'm sure they're happy with what they have. They have what they have. We don't have this yet. This is still conceptual.
Can I ask you to come up again for a minute so we can just ask you a couple of questions? Sir? What's your last name, Mr. White?
Richard Clark.
Clark, sorry. So based on what you've seen so far,
Actually, if I may, I really don't have any objection to this. I'm, looking at Dudley, our options are probably putting in a liquor store, another donut establishment, a pizza parlor, or I don't know, what else would we possibly have in Dudley? A bar, something like that. So this actually looks pretty good to me. I do have some concerns, which are personal, which don't have anything to do with Uxbridge and Webster. Thank you very much for bringing them into the picture, because I don't understand the relevancy entirely. I'm maybe a little bit limited in scope here, but it affects me. It's right next to me. It's in my backyard. I'm as close to this as anybody's going to be, aside from Mr. Ruda, and we probably can flip a coin as to who has more proximity to it. And the gentleman who's living back there in 63 is also going to be very much involved.
so we understand that and we hear you, and that's why we have this public hearing. So my question to you is, we as a board we can request the developer to screen your property from this subdivision. How would you like it screened? Would you prefer, say, a row of evergreens or arborvitaes or something like that, or would you prefer a fence? What would you?
I think I would prefer something that's natural.
You would prefer something natural?
I think that would be an enhancement to the property as well in terms of the trail, as opposed to a fence. All I can envision is some of those teenagers coming through with their cars and putting graffiti on the fence, which obviously we don't want to. We want to avoid that at all costs, certainly, as well. I confess I was aware that this was going to happen, and again, I don't conceptually have any objections to it. There are some details, and I know the board has struggled in the past. I've been at some of these hearings when you've talked about solar arrays and screening them and, giving people some separation from that, at least protecting their sight lines to some extent. And I would expect the same courtesy.
Right, and you get it. It's in the bylaw.
Okay. And what I was just shown a few minutes ago was 4 trees.
Right.
Which,
so if they had a row of...
I have a poor visual perception, but they didn't look like a whole heck of a lot.
So if where the current barn is standing now, if the barn was removed and at the front, at the barn where it's closest to Airport Road, if they started with a row of arborvitaes from there all the way back and wrapped it around the back corner, going towards the point of that property?
How long is that barn, Bob? That barn is pretty long, isn't it? I mean, that will be a big open area when that barn comes down. I mean, the barn may fall down before it comes down, but that will be a big open area at some point.
Right, so if there was, say, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, 200 linear feet of arborvitaes coming down the driveway and going across the back of your property, and that's what you were left to look at.
That sounds better than the 4 I saw before.
Okay. So.
And again, I don't object to this. I think it's probably a very good idea. Some of you may have already realized I'm a little over 55 myself, so
right.
I am in that market, and I'm not planning to move to Webster or to Uxbridge.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? Come on up, sir.
My name is George Gusky. I live at 2 Hall Road, so I'm right next door to the Pawns. I'm going to come over here for a second. My wife's going to sign in. We're directly across over here. Okay. Now, traffic that's coming down these roads right now is just it's ridiculous. As this gentleman was saying, talking about the increase in traffic over the years, you can't get out of this road anymore. You've got trailer trucks coming around here making U-turns, you've got buses trying to get through here, and you're gonna put in a driveway right here, it's gonna be a nightmare. I mean, literal nightmare. You're talking about taking and making this going all the way through to the other side. People are gonna come from Airport Road to come through here so they can alleviate this intersection down here at the golf course. This intersection's horrible. There's constantly having problems down there, accidents, whatever. So they're gonna cut through here. And I don't care if you've got a small speed bump or what you have in there, you're still gonna have problems. They put up in North Village, you had the same thing over here, access going all the way through over in Webster. They've just blocked off one side because they've got so many cars going through there. You can't even get through from Slater Street now. You have to come around from North Main Street. And you're gonna have the same thing. People are gonna come down Airport Road that are coming over this way and they're gonna cut through. Now that, like I said, with everything that's going on here, all the cars are coming through Hall Road, Dudley Hill Road, they're all coming this way to get up to the courthouse, the Dunkin' Donuts, over in this area. So this traffic is increased. We've got trailer trucks going through there on a daily basis. We've got trucks coming through that are filled up with wood chips and whatnot on a daily basis. We've had telephone lines taken out. I mean, like I said, we bought our house in '83, and I tell you, in '83, you couldn't count a half a dozen cars going through there. And I realize you've got a lot more cars now than you did then. But today, I close my windows in my living room, and I still hear the traffic. Cars don't stop at this stop sign. They blow right through. We've complained a number of times. They put a sign in back here somewhere saying stop sign up above. That doesn't stop. They still blow right through. You know, I've seen cruisers come through there that don't even stop from out of town. I mean, people are coming down this way, coming through to this intersection, and they're doing 50 miles an hour. I can't count the amount of times that we've almost gotten hit trying to back out of that driveway. It's horrible. So I think this is gonna cause a major issue in this area, more so than on Airport Road. You know, and just to go one more thing too, is now the noise that's gonna be involved over here with them building this thing. I have a problem with that. We've been listening to Nichols College for the last 5+ years, renovating over there, constantly rebuilding, and the noise has just gotten out of control. And now we're gonna turn around, we're gonna listen to it on this side. I mean, I don't know where to go with this, but it's getting crazy. You know, I think it's something that's good for the town, but for us in general in that area, I think it's hurting us. It's gonna be a real traffic jam and a real problem in that area.
I'd like to add, as an abutter, my children grew up on Hall Road, and they were able to ride their bikes up and down that road. My grandchildren ask me if they can. I really don't want them doing that. At least twice a year, we've had to have the electrical line reattached at our house. Our siding right now has big chunks in it from the trailer trucks coming through, hitting the line, and finding it on that V, right on that corner, on his lawn. As a matter of fact, our cable line is wrapped up right now and attached to the telephone pole there that got ripped out last summer from the traffic. It is unbelievable.
I called the police station and asked them, because I called, it's a telephone line. It's an old telephone line that we don't use anymore. But it was taken down, it was laying in the road. I took it over, wrapped it around the telephone pole, and it was there for over a year. The police department called the utilities to have them take it up, come get it out of there. They never did.
But that was something we weren't using anymore. We
Right.
have had our electrical line pulled
Taken
out
down
that we
several
are
times. Yeah.
using.
Because of the trailer trucks coming through there. And to add again, you know, you're talking about putting in an area where people can walk and so forth. We have a lot of people that are walking this area now that
With
are not
their
from our area.
dogs, yes.
I don't know who they are, I've never seen them.
Never
We've
seen them.
seen most of the people around it. We got a lot of people walking through there with their dogs. You're gonna have people parking on the side of the road to
Yes.
go over there. The church is not gonna allow them to park in
The-
the parking lot.
the
So they're gonna be
same-
parked on Dudley Hill Road in that area because it's kinda quiet, more so where they can get in. If they're gonna put this in, they're definitely gonna need a parking area somewhere for people to park.
Yes. You're gonna have the same problem, and I'm sure you're aware of it. Up on the road that goes to Shepherd Hill, there was a big area where people used to slide. Our kids used to slide there for years.
Right underneath
They
the second
lined
Corbin
that
Road.
whole road with cars all winter long for sliding. People need a place to go in Dudley. We've said it for years. People are walking their dogs, kids are trying to ride their bikes. They're gonna utilize that trail. But I'm afraid it's gonna be so utilized that all of us that are abutters are gonna have problems with traffic and with all the walking traffic, the trucks coming through, and again, like he said, the noise. The noise has been ridiculous because of the setup where the college is down to us on Hall Road. For years now, each project they've done, from 7 in the morning until at least 7 at night, you're hearing beep, 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 beep. Last week was leaf blowers for hours on end.
Non-stop.
This is a college, you're not gonna stop them from making their lawns look beautiful. And we're listening to this, it comes right down to us because we're in the lower area. This is gonna be directly, the entrance is directly across the street from my house. And it is directly at that Y where the traffic blows through. The police department last year put a, whatever that machine is that tells you how fast you're going. They left it up on my street at my request after 2 years of complaining to clock how bad the cars are flying to the courthouse. They gotta get to court on time. How they're flying to the courthouse, or they're flying from Dunkin' Donuts to get to the college to get to class on time, or Shepherd Hill to get to class on time. That's now a straightaway. It never was. It was like Alton Acres, but Alton Acres has gotten very bad too. So your other option, to me, is even worse than that one. But I've been there 35 years, and I have no intentions of listening to any more construction in that area.
I'll say making that a senior citizen, over 55 is gonna be better than the other
Absolutely.
way, there's no question there. But it's still gonna increase traffic, and like I said, making that roadway going through, I don't care what you put in the middle, cars are gonna go through.
They are.
And I just used North Village as an example out in Webster, but I've seen this in several places where they've had them go through and they've had to block off one of the entrances to stop the vehicles from going through. Airport Road is so busy, and like I said, making that intersection down at the golf course is so busy, people are gonna cut through there instead of going all the way around. There's no question in my mind.
I have nothing else, do you?
No. Thank you.
Okay.
Go to the selectmen.
Say it again?
Go to the selectmen with the road commissioners.
For the power lines?
No, but the traffic situation. Traffic situation. Traffic situation.
It's the police department and the board of selectmen, yeah. No, the highway department just fixes the roads and maintains them.
Who's in charge of setting out the roadways?
It would be the road commission, is the highway, the board of selectmen is the road commissioners. So, in the comments from Graves, what was his comment to you on the entrance that was gonna be onto Dudley Hill Road?
He had a question about just confirming the sight distance
Line
looking
of
in a
sight.
westerly direction.
Line of sight.
Yeah, line of sight. And so Pat's gone out and taken a look at that, and it meets ASHTO, and I think really the question he raised was, you can see this row of trees and hedges, and he said there were a couple of large trees that may have to be taken down.
Mhm.
So I think many of those are on this property where the drive comes out, and the other ones appear to be just in the right-of-way, because as you come out from this direction, the sight distance is over to the other side of the street, so, most of the stuff here would not affect the sight distance coming out here. So he said that going east it was fine, this way he just wants us to check it. So there may be some shrubs or trees along there that we'd have to identify what needs to be removed. So.
Okay. And if they were in the towns right away, you would take care of removing them?
Correct.
If necessary, okay. All right. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
There are a few things. A few things. And a few things.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, we went through that about more than one dwelling on a lot, so, like I said, it's not exactly, it might not be a full-blown subdivision plan, but nevertheless, it's to get the construction standard in,
Mhm.
drainage and the pavement width and pavement thickness and all that, subgrade, all that sort of thing.
Okay.
We'll be reviewing that. And, who would actually control that walking trail? Is it the association, or is it?
Yes.
Does it have a conservation easement on it or something?
Well, the whole thing is gonna be inside the open space parcel, so right now, the
Yeah.
way it's set up is the units are in development parcels that are shown on the plan, and everything, all the other 8 acres are in permanently protected open space, so that would be under the homeowners association's control.
Okay.
We could put it in a conservation easement, we'd rather, I don't think we could do a conservation restriction that goes to the state.
Easement, yeah.
A conservation easement, it's gonna be its own parcel, non-buildable parcel.
That'd be something taken up with the Conservation Commission when you go with it next week, whenever you're going? Okay. I just have a question. Is this the A&R plan that Rick Parra did before he retired?
Yes.
He's done 2 or 3 on this over the years. Yeah, there were a couple
This is-
different
this
ones
is
as
the
far
one-
as changing the lot lines over on this side of the property, and
Yeah, but this is the one that was done most recently, is that right? The exterior of the lot?
There was, my brother sold his house, are you talking about,
Abutting?
subdivisions that were done?
The A&R plan that,
What?
the A&R plan that Rick Parra did before he
Yeah,
retired?
there's an A&R plan on 26 Dudley Hill Road,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have an A&R plan on 61 Airport Road. And, you know, I've lived there all my life, if I could just say, and I certainly appreciate what my neighbors' concerns are. You know, I actually have the police department, I've given them permission 20 years ago to run radar out of my driveway. So when you see that cruiser, that's 61 Airport Road, it's my driveway. I don't think we're gonna solve all the world's problems here. You know, life goes on, the development goes on. We're trying not to cause any problems, and whatever we can do to cut the traffic down that tries to go through there, we're willing to try.
Maybe we can make it better.
What's that?
Maybe we can make it better. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, you know, it's my town too. I'm as invested as everyone else here in this town. And I wanna keep the complexion of Dudley the way it is, more or less. You know, so we have to balance progress and keeping life the way it was. And I just want you to know that, you know, I'm not a developer from out of town
Right.
that's coming in. I want to live there. I do live there. So,
And I mean, you going around to all the neighbors and the abutters and talking to them and sending them a letter, at the stage that you did, that was not required by the town, just so everybody knows that. You did that on your own, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, it wasn't like you were trying to do this under the cover of darkness.
No, that first thought was, let's not let something in the newspaper be the first time the people that live there hear about it. Now, I didn't realize when we started that the abutters are 300 feet from the property line. I thought the abutters were the people like Dick, that, you know, that abutted the property.
Right.
Already?
If I had known that, if I was on the ball with that and a developer, I would have went to all those people. I wasn't trying to slight anybody, I just didn't realize it.
The statute reads abutters and abutters to abutters within 300 feet. But our bylaw and the regulations read 300 feet, period. So that's the difference.
Okay.
We're trying to do the right thing.
Right. Do we have any other comments from the public?
I'm Jack Poole, and I live at 31 Dudley Hill Road. What I want to say is, regardless of how that property is developed, I think it is up to the town to make sure the proper infrastructure and traffic patterns are in place. You know, I think it's up to the town to make sure that the traffic is going to be safe there. I know he said our water pressure will increase. I find that hard to believe, quite frankly. I don't see how adding 22 units is gonna help the water pressure in a section of town that already has low water pressure. But I think it's up to the town to make sure all these things are in place before anything gets built there. And that's all I want to say.
Okay. So what I can say to that is that even though this open space residential subdivision is more units than what you would have gotten with a conventional subdivision, if you go back to what Ms. Simsak said earlier, if those 16 houses were built with 4 bedrooms, you have the potential of having 4 to 5 cars per house, because you figure the mother and father would have a car, and then as the kids get older, there would be a car for each kid. So at some point in time, each household could have 4 to 5 cars. In a typical 55 and older community, you're gonna probably have 1 to 2 cars per unit.
Yep, I agree with that, but it's, like I say, it's up to the town to make sure that the roads are safe to travel, and the water system and the sewer system is up to code to handle the amount of buildings that are on the properties.
I just want to say one more thing. You see, like a 55 community, I'm almost there, and I get a lot of friends that are there that have kids that are driving right now. So you're saying that one person has to be 55 years old to live in there? That's what he said earlier?
I think that's the regulation.
So one person has to be 55 years old.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that children aren't gonna be living there.
Well, if you have a 2-bedroom home or a 2-bedroom condominium, whatever you want to call it, townhouse.
1 floor.
It's 1 floor. I mean, there's not really a lot of space for other people. You got your 2
Well,
bedrooms.
But the regulation is generally one person has to be at least 65 years old, and nobody under 18 years old can live permanently in the house.
Oh, nobody under 18
Yes.
can live permanently in the house?
Each community can have their own rules and regulations, but it's up to them to set it. You know?
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. I'm saying, at first he said, okay, one person has to be 55 years old. So, and if they don't implement that, there can't be anybody under 18 living there, then it's
advantageous.
kind of
It's
difficult.
advantageous for the people who live there. The people that want to move into these communities don't want
have to live up to that standard, yes.
don't wanna-
Maybe don't have kids or don't, yeah.
There's all kinds of, when I was in Florida, it was all, for the winter, there was HOA rules, like you can't have a unregistered vehicle in your yard.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody leave their car in your yard
Yeah.
for more than so many days.
There's a lot of
There's-
controls that way that you don't have with the conventional plan. Nobody can tell you how many cars you can have, or kids that you can have, or how much junk in the yard, so.
So it is, it's true 55 and older living there.
Yeah.
And there's,
And those people,
would be.
the residents who own those houses are gonna decide as a group what the rules are, as far as, you know, how many cars you can have, how many dogs you can have.
No
you know.
clotheslines, no
Yeah.
whatever. I mean,
Right.
that's something that they have to develop as an association.
And
No antennas.
usually, my limited experience is people are, hey, it's my neighborhood, so we're gonna make it pretty strict.
if there was a guarantee that there was gonna be rules and regulations like that, I think that'd be a lot easier to handle, a lot easier to pass over to people that, you know, that.
There's
I don't know, I'm not a professional on how any of this works, I'm just.
There's gonna be rules and regulations for the homeowners
Traffic
association.
and a lot more people around, the noise and everything like that, that's all. Like you say, everywhere is expanding, no matter where you go, you're gonna expand.
Sir?
One comment on the water. When we went to the water sewer board, they actually made sure to tell us that they wanted it loop connected, really. And that's where the, really, that's a word about increasing the pressure right from the water board, because they know that there's low pressure in that area, and the more interconnections and gridding you can have with the water system is a good thing for the system, according to the water commissioners. And
Okay.
that's where that premise came up.
Well, they have an engineer that works for them, just like we have an engineer that works for us. So if their engineer's telling them this, then we have to accept that. Sir?
I live at Victor Calvert. I live at 64 Airport Road, right across from where the road's going to come out. The traffic in town is the traffic in town. That's the way I look at it. Well, the only reason I came up here was one thing just came to me. I'm interested. You know, I should sell the big house I have and move over there. And I've heard other people that I know in town say the same thing, downside. One reason why that might actually happen, those rules, is someone like me that's looking to live there, there's some reasons why I want to live there, okay? There won't be a lot of noise from kids and a lot of traffic, especially with hopefully somehow keep the through traffic out. But all those regulations are things that people like myself are looking for. And if you don't have them in that, or you're not going to sell your houses.
That's right. There absolutely will be a homeowners association to control that. There's going to be open space and there's going to be a private roadway, so there has to be. If not an alternative, there has to be.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to state?
One more thing, if nobody else does. Can you explain a little bit more how you're going to access the existing homes?
Are you going to access them?
Yeah. I just don't want you to end up with a zoning problem, because they don't access from the street or something?
So the two existing houses?
Right.
The one at 61, we would come off of the same roadway as it does today. The driveway is right here, so we would plan on coming down into that and coming into the lot right here just south of the house.
Okay, so essentially it's the same driveway?
It's in the same driveway, yeah. So it would access from this driveway in, which it does today. It's the exact same, and there's also an exit out on Airport that way.
Yep.
It's a horseshoe driveway.
Yeah, so it wraps right around.
Okay.
And then this one, the driveway comes in right here on this side of the house today. It's a loop driveway, so we would just have this connection continue to that house.
Okay. Want to be sure you weren't accessing from the interior of the project, because that might create a zoning issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The house that's inside, that's sitting in the middle of the project.
That one?
It's still going to have access through
Yes.
to Airport Road.
Yes, he has a legal right, a legal access and utility easement that comes down right in here today. Bob's met with him on at least 2 occasions. We've adjusted the plan so that he could see he would come down on the new roadway like this. That's his driveway right there, the end of it. He would go right in the same way he does. He asked to make sure that we're going to keep the trees in this location and plant a few extra trees in there, and he's agreed to all of that.
So they all exist now, in other words?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
That's the brick house.
All right, so the drive, would be to the right of that?
Yeah, just to the north side of the brick house. Yep, I believe there's a garage right there that the drive would pass through that garage. Is that?
That's also a horseshoe driveway currently.
Yeah.
You can go right around, there's like 2 driveways there. And it'll change to be in a probably
Single.
on the church side. My brother owns that house.
The other side of the house. Is the orchard,
Yeah, there's some blueberry bushes.
apple tree? I call that what?
That's my other neighbor that planted the fruit trees. They're still pretty small. But the blueberry bushes are part of that house, that brick house we're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's a horseshoe driveway right there.
Apple trees.
Yeah.
Other trees, and then there's a brick wall that goes up towards the other side of the brick house.
Yeah, you're talking about the access road that we're proposing. It would be, very close to where the driveway to the left of that brick house is right now. So it's not really coming out in that intersection people have talked about. It's about 50 yards from the intersection. It's only about 50 yards, it's not very far. Yeah, but it's not making it like a four-way intersection or something, you know? No, it's not, but what I'm saying, with the amount of trailer trucks and stuff that are making U-turns right there, it's gonna cause problems.
Sounds like you already have a problem over there. That's why we're here.
Okay,
If I may,
sure. Come up to the speaker,
I'm
sir.
just also thinking, like I said, you're putting in senior citizens there, okay? And these people are coming out of that driveway. I'm sorry. Oh, listen, I'm 60, come on. You're putting older people in there, they're coming out of that driveway, and you've got these trucks coming through there, and like I said, buses making U-turns right there. 50 yards, I don't think it's quite that much, but even if it is, that's not a big distance when you've got a trailer truck coming around you.
It's about 250 feet. This is a 100 scale plan, and from where this road comes out, that's about 2.5, almost 3 inches from that driveway, from that intersection. So it's closer to 250 to 300 feet away. So it's more than you would think, but.
We can ask for a traffic study. I mean, the question was asked, who controls the traffic? So on a larger scale subdivision, the planning board could ask for a traffic study to be conducted. I mean, based on what I'm seeing here, I don't know if that would warrant it, but I mean, we asked recently for a traffic study on another subdivision that's being proposed that was just approved off of Jesse Road and Alton Drive, and basically what came up with that was an 18-unit residential subdivision. They did a traffic study on that, and the traffic engineer quoted that there was going to be no impact to the current road. And that's a much smaller road, and it's down a very steep hill. I think people that live in town know where I'm talking about. And there was no impact with building 18 houses on a cul-de-sac off of Jesse Road. The traffic engineers from wherever they hire it from.
So he does his study, then he goes home to Webster or Bridge. Happy day.
Yeah. But, I mean, they did do a traffic study because we asked for it, and like I said, it was deemed that there was no impact to the traffic on the road. So.
I would appreciate if you did have a traffic study done. That would be fantastic, because bus 4 for 35 years has had to back up where that driveway is going to be in order to make the corner down Hall Road to drop off my next door neighbor's child and my children 55 years ago. They can't make it, and those are school buses, and they're not making it. Trailer trucks go around the other way from Hall Road to Dudley Hill, and they back up Dudley Hill, so the cars coming down from the golf course are flying through and jacking on their brakes, because there's a trailer truck in the middle of the road trying to get down Dudley Hill Road from Hall Road. There were no weight limits. There were no signs preventing any of that, so a traffic study would be wonderful in that area.
Yep, but the traffic study would be just for the effect that the people in this proposed subdivision would have on the surrounding roads. It would have nothing to do with buses or trucks or other.
I understand that,
yeah.
but it would show the amount of traffic coming through, okay, the size of the traffic coming through, the weight of the traffic coming through, and the speed of the traffic, because they're coming from the golf course straight down, and they're flying. So would it show how many cars a day are going through from the college or Shepherd Hill to come down Dudley Hill Road, the intersection where the golf course is, coming down Dudley Hill Road, where that road's gonna come out onto? You are absolutely right. You have full vision. If you cut those trees down, pulling out of there, you have full vision to the left. To the right, they're gonna come around that corner, somebody's gonna get killed. That's all I can say.
Well, you've checked them, it meets AASHTO standards at that corner, so that's the design standard. But again, the purpose of a traffic study, as I think you mentioned, would be look at the impact that this project has on the abutting roads. So if you look at the percentage of 12 homes coming out on Dudley Hill Road over a day for seniors, it's going to be minor. Clearly, the conventional plan would have much more of an impact with a through road and with 10 trips per day per house.
Right.
So we're already showing an option that minimizes the traffic as much as possible. Right. And so certainly these vehicles are not going to impact the traffic on those streets. And I think people, if they are concerned about safety, we are looking at the AASHTO standards, just as Graves already has done. They raised one question down here, and they've already said the other intersections meet the standard. So that's the national standard. So it's not that we just made up these locations and assume they'll work. We have checked them. They meet the state and the national standard. So, well,
I don't think that the traffic coming out of there is gonna cause an increase in traffic. You're not talking a lot of cars, okay? My concern is safety, number one, but the amount of cars that may come from Airport Road through, not the people living in there. Yeah, that's gonna be no impact whatsoever. You know, like you said, 20 senior citizens living in there is not gonna be a lot of traffic coming in and out. It's the traffic that's gotta come through from Airport Road or from this way to Airport Road. I think you're gonna have a big traffic bind on both ends when you do that.
Well, with the neck down that they've proposed there in the middle, that could easily do a gate if they had to. That could be closed off.
Well, like I said, that's what they ended up doing at North Village and Webster. They blocked the whole road off on Bristol Street there. You can't get through it all. You have to come in through North Main Street. But yeah, because that causes a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a problem in the future, there could easily be a gate that could be put up there, and it could be one that the fire trucks or the police cars could go through, but not your average cut daily driver.
And that's something, somebody made a comment about that. It's gonna be up to the police department to enforce that type of stuff. They can't just sit there. I mean, they have to put a cruiser there 24/7 just to try to, you know, to control whatever traffic's going through there. So that's not feasible. I mean, the police are doing what they can do, and I think they're doing a great job as it is now, but
Yeah.
that's not something they can.
The other thing they can do, the subdivision, the homeowners, if it is a private way, they can post it's a private way. They can post it as a private way.
Does that stop people?
I mean, if I was gonna pull down a road and it said private way, I may not go down it. I would just keep
Well,
going.
that's you. I see a lot of people are going down it, so.
just to raise one other point, because that's been brought up multiple times. I mean, as you're driving up and down Airport, I don't see how this is a shortcut to go to this intersection that everybody says is already so tough, or this intersection, and if you're coming this way, the same thing. Why would you cut through here to get to this road, when if you're here, you could go straight this way? It just doesn't seem like it's a real good shortcut to go anywhere.
Put a trailer truck through there either, I hope.
Yeah,
It's not gonna be a shortcut. It's not a shortcut. But it's gonna stop them from having to sit at the traffic over at the golf course.
Then they're gonna cut through this and then end up on the next road that has the same problem. It's not gonna be faster.
They're going down that way.
I mean, again, just looking at the plan, I don't see how anyone would do that
People come
to
from Pocket
speed
Shop
up.
area, they come down Airport Road, they turn to come back up, to go up Dudley Hill Road or come that way, they head up that way. And instead of trying to get through Main Street and the lights over in that area, so they'll come around. They're gonna cut through there now, because that's gonna be shorter than going all the way down to down to the golf course to come around. The traffic at that golf course can get very tight at sometimes. It makes it very difficult to get through there. So that's just gonna make a short, not so much shorter, but an easier access for them to get around there without having to go by.
There is a sign before the golf course indicating dangerous intersection. I still don't have an idea what that means, other than there are several of them in town. Nobody pays any attention to them, but somebody, somewhere, maybe one of those studies, determined that was a dangerous intersection. So someone taking the path of least resistance may find that the way to go.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion, we close this public hearing.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, so we have the public hearing closed. You're looking for, sorry. You're looking for approval of your special permit and your, it's not a site plan, is it? It's considered open space residential?
It's open space residential. The special permit is kind of the yes or no.
Yep.
And then the fine line design, I guess you want to say, is the definitive subdivision plan that you showed how the road is constructed.
Right. Okay, so basically what we would be doing is approving the concept of what you showed, and we would be able to add conditions upon issuing an approval. And then obviously you would still have to go before conservation and approve and meet whatever conditions that they have. I mean, obviously, from the input that we've had here tonight, the screening is gonna be an issue for the abutters. We're gonna ask you to take care of that. It was asked to be natural, so some kind of shrubbery or bushes or trees to take care of this.
At that point, I was gonna suggest to the gentleman, but we'd be happy to have one of our landscape architects come out and walk it with them, because there may be something much better than that many arborvitae's lined up that would look more attractive, depending on what he's got planted in his backyard, so.
Right.
If that would be an alternative, we'd be happy to sit with him, and if he says, yes, we're okay with that plan, then I think that might.
I would ask that my neighbor 67 be included in that.
Right, I mean,
He's gotta be affected.
we're gonna see that you address any direct abutters,
It would just be a continuation.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And that you guys are, come up with an agreement that would be satisfactory for everybody. Everything else looked okay with what I saw. The number of units and everything's meets the criteria of the bylaw. The roadway layout where it's split in half, I think is a better option than having a straight-through road.
I'd also like to see some type of a device, if it's a gate or whatnot, that's removable, that the police could get in and out, but that could shut off if the traffic starts cutting through there.
Right, yeah, or it could be a remote control gate where they have a button in the car or.
Something.
Yeah, if it needs be.
Something that could be put in place if it becomes a problem.
Right.
Maybe we could meet with the police and fire again to talk to them and see what they're comfortable with.
Just like what they have with the intersections and the streetlights. When they pull up to a streetlight, they know they're coming and the door would open, or the gate would open versus the streetlight change.
Yeah, I think the only trick in this case is just like for the trash truck, if they were driving through, it would be nice for them to be able to go through it.
Right.
So that's the part that.
So you gotta give the utilities access, not everybody. Yeah. If it's a problem. I mean, you could do it, you're gonna tell in the first 6 months if it's a problem.
Yep.
If it's a problem, you'll have it set up. If it's not, then you can leave it open.
So, one of the conditions would be a detailed planting plan, I think.
Yep, a detailed planting plan for, show all the screening
Whole site, actually. Probably, yeah, you can do that anyway, I guess.
that the abutters would be agreeable to. Obviously, we're gonna have the set hours of construction. What were the hours again, Don? 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday? And 8 to 4 on Saturday, I believe.
I think so.
So that would have to be abided by. No construction on Sundays or holidays.
Due to the late hour, do we need to go through all the conditions of approval right now, or?
No, I think we could just approve, I think we can just approve the special permit for now, because I think you have to do a little bit more work and come back. And
Yeah,
then,
we could work with Don, I'd like to talk to Don, meet again on just the subdivision discussion.
Yeah, it's more of a construction standard, really, than
Yep.
a full-blown definitive plan.
and then
Talk
also,
about how we can arrange that.
also you might wanna think about having a pre-construction meeting
Oh, absolutely. as well, that's
with
true.
all the other boards that are involved. Okay? All right, so, given that, in the hour that we're at, I'll say,
I think one of the things that's important, if you don't mind, is put in a private way sign at the, at Dudley Hill Road and at Airport Road.
Put a what sign? I'm
private
sorry.
way.
Private way,
Private way.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a big deterrent to a lot of people,
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
putting the private way signs up.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Put no through way, too.
Yeah, I think that would be advantageous here on both sides, yeah.
And the only other thing I would say is I would look at, I know you're probably I understand you don't necessarily want to create a parking lot there, but I mean, I'm thinking for the number of houses you have there, you may want to just think about adding 1 or 2 spots of like overflow parking for the residents. I mean, because if they're gonna, if it's a 55 and older community and they do have grandkids and they come on the weekends for a Christmas party or Easter time or whatever holiday, I mean, just to have, 2 parking spots in each side of it so that if somebody was having a party, there's a place to have it.
And I think you actually talked about using the pavers that are open, that you could put grass in, using something like that, just that they have somewhere to go.
Something permeable.
Right, it doesn't have to be impervious, right? A couple spots on each side might be enough. Because I lived in a condo with no visitor parking, it wasn't fun.
Forced to park on the street.
Right, so think about that,
You want to mention the homeowners association, too, that obviously it's going to be a homeowners association formed.
and they'll have to give us the details on that.
Yeah. Let's give us the details of the homeowners
And one of the things
association.
that you would have to make in the conditions of the homeowners association is that the road would never be accepted by the town for a public way. That would be a condition of approval, that it's forever a private road in perpetuity. That's what we did with the one in West Dudley. Okay.
Was there any granting easements to the sewer and water departments over the roadway for the, in case something goes wrong with the water mains, they want to be able to get into it? Wouldn't that be true? The loop.
Well, yeah, are you asking, do we need to give them an easement to run water and sewer?
No.
I don't understand.
Give them an easement to maintain it, too.
Well, we have, the roadway right now is, so it's an easement, there's a dash line on the plan, so there's an access easement. and
Okay,
to
just
the
so
whole
they can maintain the main if something goes wrong.
Yeah, so the
Loop.
sewer and water would be in that easement, so they'd have the ability to go in and maintain.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
All right, so we would be looking for an approval for a special permit of Legacy Landing LLC, 61 Airport Road, Dudley, Mass. For an open space residential subdivision located on Assessor's Tax Map 227, lots 4, 6, 16.1, and 17, containing 12.87 acres. Somebody care to make that motion?
I move to approve the special permit as read by the chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous? Okay, so we have your special permit.
Thank you. Yeah, and can we just ask that we could have Don send us a copy of that draft decision, with these conditions, just before it gets filed?
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah, for sure. And make sure you're,
And you need to
May not be at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, but
make it noon.
probably the first of next week.
I think the rest of our agenda is complete. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you. Good night.
No, we are not having our